7 o'clock. Whoa. So good evening, everybody. My name's Lynn Wiles. I'm the chairman of the Utilities Committee Utilities Committee. I'm calling to our Tuesday, August 6th meeting to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So just a couple of details for the people out who are not on screen at this point in time. If there's an emergency and we have to evacuate the building, there's two exits to the building. There's one back behind you over there and one over here. Please go to the nearest one, exit the building, and stay outside of the building until our public service or our public safety officers direct us to come back in. Just a couple of other items for tonight. Our cable TV crew is engaged over at the school board, so we are not being televised live tonight. It is being recorded. I would expect it to be available on YouTube probably starting tomorrow at some point in time. And we are also going to have public comment really next on the agenda, and then we're going to have an opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. When we have our friends from Pennachuck up presenting, it's not going to be a public hearing, so we will not be entertaining public comment at that point in time. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to submit the questions and we'll get you answers. But we're not going to have a public comment with Pennachuck at this point in time. So with that said, we have a full committee, so all the voting members will be voting. And the alternates will not be voting tonight, but as always, alternate opinions are very welcome. And with that, we have an opportunity for public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address the committee? Okay, seeing none.
One of these days.
One of these days. Maybe we're just doing our job so well everybody understands what we're doing. So with that, we're going to move into a presentation or a discussion with Pennachuck Waterworks. John Bovair, the CEO of Pennachuck, is with us tonight, and a number of people, from John's team.
Not as many as the committee members here. But no, they were in most of them were in Londonderry most of the day today, so it wasn't too bad of a drive for them.
Excellent.
Again, just for the record, John Bovair, I'm the CEO of Pennachuck, and I've actually been involved with Londonderry. In 2006, I was the chief engineer and have been working a lot with the system over the years, improvements and other things. So there's a lot I am familiar with. And there's even more now that I'm not as familiar with, that I have folks back here that can help me answer some questions. And what I hope, and if it's okay with you, what I'll do is kind of just give a little brief overview, but I want to bring up some of the staff so that you can put a name and a face of the people who are out really doing the work and on a regular basis. But also, too, they're the ones who can speak to the specific projects that are going on within the community, one being the one that we have up off of Gordon Drive, a tank booster station. The other one, there's others, private, what I would call private projects, main extensions that are being done to address PFAS contamination. And I know that you have submitted some other questions regarding, the other projects, it would be the High Range Road area that is within the St. Gobain consent decree, as well as there's a little thing going on at the PUC where we're looking to, as a company, consolidate our three operating utilities, Pennachuck Waterworks, Pennachuck East Utility, and Pittsfield Aqueduct Company, into a single operating unit, along with partnered up with a rate case going on with that as well too. I'll try to answer those questions that we received a little as best as I can, but it will be a process. So if I can, I'm gonna go to a project update, because that's the most fun stuff, I think, and then I'll address some of, and Jeff, you were kind, to solicit questions, and I can voice to those and hopefully answer some of those, and I'm sure this will stimulate some more questions from the committee, and that would be great. Before I forget, we would also like to do is, we're trying to do a little bit more outreach to the communities and folks like yourself, but, we are a water utility that operates in more than like 25, 26 communities throughout the state. But we have some main facilities and where a lot of our operations are on, off of Route 3 in Nashua. We have a distribution facility, a modern distribution facility, and our main treatment facility, which we would like to arrange for you all at a point in time to come on over and tour those facilities and meet the staff that run those and see the operations. I think it's important to see where your water sources come from, how it's treated, how it moves and moves throughout the system. We can talk about it all we want here, but until you actually see it, I like books with pictures. So I think that once you see things and stuff and you can ask questions and meet some of the staff and know that who's operating your water utility, I think it'll be fun for us, because we like taking tours, and I've already alerted Hannah back there that she's gonna probably have to give the tour, so she's already gearing up for it. She's done a number of them. She can survive fifth graders. I think we're gonna be okay. So anyway, the first project I'd like to have, I'd like to talk a little bit about our developer, the known developer projects. These aren't our projects, but they're being funded by the DES to some of these community water systems, and I'd like to have Pete Tedder, our principal distribution engineer, just come on up and just kind of speak to where those stand as to our involvement. Again, they're not being driven by Pennachuck, but we are working closely with those entities to bring water main extensions to them. So,
Good evening, Pete Tedder, Distribution Engineering Manager at Pennachuck. Some PFAS projects that are queuing up pretty quick right now. We have Wagon Wheel, which is located off Stonehenge Road, Midridge Development off of Mammoth Road, and then we also have Century Village, which is Winding Pond Road. Wagon Wheel and Midridge were expected to start in August. Century Village, they expect that to commence in September. Other big projects that developers are working on are 50 to 52 Gilcrest Road, which is Gilcrest Commons. Ford of Londonderry has a project they're working on too, all pulling off Gilcrest. Juniper Ridge, 35 Gilcrest Road, and Alta Woodmont, which is a development that's already started up off of Governor Bell Drive.
so it's pretty active, and there's two other community water systems extensions. Roland Meadows, down off of the southern part, right off of Old Nashua. Is it Old Nashua Road or yes?
Yeah, Old Nashua.
And there was one other one that's out there as well. That's actually one real extension to two different community water systems. So we don't know when that's going to start, but it's under engineering. It's going through the engineering process now. So there's a lot of activity in Londonderry. I think long term, the planning for the story, the projects that we're completing now are definitely can support that, but there's going to be other things in the future that we'll need to do to continue to support, the growth and development in response to the PFAS contamination of not only some of these community system wells, but also the private sector. But we also are limited in what we can do, which we'll discuss a little bit later as well. So, but I think that's kind of this is Pete. I wanted to make sure that you saw it, put a name in the face, so he's kind of leading those projects.
You have a question?
Yeah, do you have like something on your website that shows like a little map that shows this is where we're working these are the projects that we're working on and something like that, or?
It's funny. It's funny that we are going through some web page revisions, and that's one of the things that we would like to bring back. We had started it a few years ago, but things like that take care and feeding, and so we wanted to make sure that we, from a staffing perspective and somebody that's really championing that, we haven't been as diligent as we would like with that. But it is something that we want to reestablish, and it may be, here's our projects, here where we're working, here's the contact information if you need to, and it might not be much more than that, but could give a brief description of where those stands. You may not see a schedule, you may not, whatever, but it is as we start to discuss internal corporate communications with our customer service and others in there, it is definitely a priority to really improve and enhance that. Right now, it's a functional website, but it's not really where we want it to be.
Sure.
Do you have a date as to when you think it's going to be up and running?
Oh.
With all the latest information and the status of your projects?
It's probably going to be a little bit. It might even in the updates. We've got some other structural thing. We're working through what's called the lead and copper rule right now, which is fortunately Londonderry is good. There's no lead services in Londonderry. That's a good thing. And we don't see many. There's very few in any of our systems. So we've been very fortunate. If I have my wife's cousin lives in Providence, Rhode Island, and
Yep.
pretty much 75% of their services were all lead services. So
Yep.
we're pretty fortunate up here. But that's been taking up a lot of our time from a public outreach and things, so it might be a little bit. I think John had reached out to me about doing a little bit of an update, and I think I've got a couple people here that might be able to help you with that
For the committee,
information.
I talked to Jeff, and I talked to John, and they have a lot of projects going on in Londonderry, and a lot of times we're trying to figure out, well, I gotta run up to there and do this. So I suggested to John, if the committee's okay with this, that I just create a cheat sheet. It's a very simple, this is the project, this is the milestone, if it changes, I'll highlight it in red. John has control or whatever he wants on staff, and what I'll do is I'll present it to the committee like a few days before our meeting. That way you can glance at it. I'll bring hard copies to the meeting, and that way it'll keep us updated on each of the, the 15 projects that are going on right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd have to call them up and say, is that a 17-inch water main I just saw? No, I said, is it a 32?
It's 30.
He goes, in your dreams.
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say, I said it was 20. But no, they are deceiving, that's for sure.
So if the committee's okay with that, I'd be more than happy to do that as part of the water committee and supply that.
Yeah,
I think
Can
that
we
would be
put that up
helpful.
on the website?
Oh, if you wanted to,
mean, it's
John will
the
have the
kind of
control
thing
of
that
what
would
is
be
published or
public,
not.
so
okay?
Right, and I mean,
Put it up.
if it's public here, you can publish it on your website, it would be fine.
But again, I would
It's
only
pretty
clear everything with you
generic,
first.
yeah.
Right.
We
Okay.
appreciate that, and we want to make sure that we get you the right information.
Okay, good.
I just wanted to ask one additional question, and that is, you mentioned private sector, and you said you're going to be doing some work with the private sector. And I'm curious as to which is the priority for you all right now, the public sector or the private sector?
When we say private sector, these are these
Talking
small
about
independent.
businesses.
Yeah, independent community water systems that we're working with right now.
Okay.
They are really being driven by those owners of those community water systems, which is usually an association, and their consultants at this point, and they're working directly with the New Hampshire DES. Where Pete has been primarily I think from a technical review and making sure that all of their designs meet our standards. So all of these projects are priorities for us as far as the ones that we have ongoing, and that's why you see the number of people here that it takes to manage this type of activity in any one area. So we'll be bringing some other people up who are actually working closely with the projects that we're in charge of, that we're driving, the tank, the booster station, that we're working with half the funding of it as ours, and half of the funding is the Pillsbury LLC Woodmont Commons.
Okay, but it sounds like even in the community water systems, it's more residents versus businesses?
Most of those are all residential. Yeah, I don't think there's I can't think of any commercial that is tied to any one of those, but those are mostly residential. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Ford
Yeah.
project?
The Ford,
They're putting in a new fire service over there.
yeah, so a couple little things like that.
You made a list of projects, most of which are existing systems, couple, I think, of cold starts as well. So we could assume that these are all wells in Londonderry that are gonna stop withdrawing water from our groundwater,
Mhm.
and it's gonna come from basically the Merrimack or the wells in Litchfield. Is
Yeah.
that,
Right, as of now, the water that you're seeing primarily, except if there's one well that's still operational in Litchfield, that Hudson, that's below the state standard, but, we're seeing numbers that is probably not gonna meet the new EPA standard when that comes out. They've already shut down, 2 wells because it didn't. So there is the Londonderry residents that are tied to the Hudson system will see water that's coming from that well, plus our main treatment facility, because we've been providing the vast majority of Hudson its water from our interconnection. The area that we're talking about here, if you were receiving water here, is all coming from Manchester. So we purchased from Manchester Waterworks, and that, if I had to, they do have the northern source on the Merrimack River, but if you look at it, it's in Hooksett for the most part. It's way up there. So most of the water, I would tend to believe, comes from Lake Massabesic through the treatment facility.
I have a question, and that is, you mentioned that some of these projects are private developments, which they are, but some of these have been approved by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and others, and but the trouble is, they don't have pipes in the ground to get that water there. One of them would be, I believe, Country Village, which is on South Mammoth Road.
I think, yeah, I know the one you're talking, yes, they'll be
Okay, so-
extending water,
So
yep.
that's been approved, but at this point, they don't have pipes in the ground to get municipal water there.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is the one off, there's actually 2 off Old Nashua Road.
Yep.
Okay? Once again, they don't have any municipal water. There was potential for getting that water there, but it hasn't happened yet. So is that something that you folks are looking at to get that water to them?
Well, actually, when I was, maybe I wasn't clear when I was speaking to that earlier, is that though the owners of those community water systems, the owners of them, the association, has applied to the New Hampshire DES for the grants and loan funding to
Right.
basically connect a pipe to our water, to the Pennachuck water system in Londonderry, and extend that pipe into their system. That's what those projects involve. So they'll actually be connected to the larger Greater Londonderry core water system.
I understand,
done.
but they're not gonna pay to put the pipes in the ground, okay? They're not gonna do that. Someone's going to do that, and it's gonna be connected to your system, meaning Pennachuck. And so, is that something that you folks are looking at being involved in?
Well, they are paying for it. They do
That's
have a
why they're applying
combination
for a
of
grant, right?
they
They're
have
paying
grants
for
and
a
loans
grant.
to do that. They're gonna be paying the DES back a loan. So those associations are paying 100% of the cost to make that connection, even though the funding is coming from the DES.
Well, we understand that, but the actual pipes to connect to the municipal water system, your water system on South Road or
Yep.
or wherever it's going to connect.
Yep.
It may connect closer than that. I think you folks have to be involved with that.
Well, we are, because we will take ownership of those once they're installed, but they're working with their own engineer to design and, with Pete.
Okay.
Pete is overseeing those designs, so
Okay,
they're
so-
making sure they're doing it to our specifications. And then they'll hire their contractor, like we hire our contractors to do our own project. They'll bid that work out, and they'll have a contractor that installs and builds that for them.
Okay, and the other one, which is on, or 2, is actually on Old Nashua Road, that at least one of them has grant money
Yep.
set aside to do that. So has there been discussion of Pennachuck connecting along Mammoth Road, 102, to connect from Hudson, at the border of Hudson, into Londonderry, and to eventually connect to where the current water line is
Right.
coming from the east?
The current plan is, because of capacity issues coming out of Hudson, okay, we can't really make any connections to the system in Hudson right now. They don't have a pump station that's big enough. So the water is actually coming, it's gonna come from the Londonderry side and still stay within Londonderry.
Okay,
Okay, so our connection, we are connected down at, remember Avery, it was called Avery Estates?
yeah,
Okay, that water comes actually through Hudson.
right.
Okay, well, it goes through Hickory Woods up on the hill, across from the flea market, and it connects down. But that is about the maximum we can't get any more water through that connection. It doesn't have the capacity.
Okay, I don't want to take a long time here, but there's also the discussion of bringing another water line across the river, under the river or whatever, which actually has also been earmarked for that money. What's your status with that?
The status of that is that we're working with the town of Hudson now, because Hudson actually would be the primary initial beneficiary of that. So we've partnered, we've got a memorandum of understanding with Hudson that we're both applying into the DES to start to enact that process to design and construct that pipeline across the river, which will bring additional capacity from the west side of the river, from our treatment facility, directly into Hudson, Litchfield, and eventually it could find its way to Londonderry.
Okay, that's what we're concerned with also. Thank you.
So we are going to take advantage of it if we can. Yes. So I think with that, I think I'd like to, if there's any other question, I'd like to bring up Casey Harden. Casey, she's our engineer that's working on kind of the project manager. Her and Mark Fillion back there are primary engineers working on that, but Casey is graciously enough voluntold to give you the update.
That's right. That's a fair statement. Good afternoon. I think I've met some of you before, maybe sat in front of you 1 or 2 times. Let me know if you can't hear me all right. But so we have 3 pretty big projects going on right now over by Michael's Way and Gordon Drive. I'm sure you have all seen them, if not driven past them. The tank is the site I was just at today, which is pretty interesting. It's a 1.25 million gallon tank, concrete tank, and they are currently lifting up the wall panels and dome panels for that. So construction is going along pretty well. They should be wrapped up with that within the next couple months. It should be online by the end of the year. So project's going pretty well. That tank connects through a transmission main down to our booster station. So the transmission main, which might have been the 32-inch pipe that you thought you
Looks
saw.
impressive.
It's
And the grass will never look so good as it ever looked to the in-house.
Yeah. It's actually a 20-inch HDPE pipe.
It's 20, okay.
Yeah, 20-inch. So that will send water from our tank down to our booster station, which is located on Michael's Way. So that's that building that you can kind of see going north on Michael's Way up to Pillsbury Road off to the left. So they just put the roof trusses on that, which is pretty good. They're making very good progress on that as well. So that booster station will now allow us to send water from our 498 hydraulic grade zone that we call it, or the low pressure system, up into our high pressure system, the 620 grade zone. So I know there was a water main outage, I think 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, that was cool, because at 10 o'clock, I got an email that said, at 9 o'clock, you guys were shutting it off.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep. Well,
Point taken. Thank you, John. We'll make that.
yeah.
We
But
must have been on daylight savings time. I don't know, whatever it was.
But if we did have this station operating at that point, that outage wouldn't have happened. So this project is extremely important to the redundancy of the Londonderry system. So I know I'm very excited to get it up and running and get it going. But yeah, it's a fairly big project, one of the biggest we've had in a couple of years, but
Let's
it's
take
going well.
some of the pressure off the 2 pumps that have to oscillate to keep the pressure up, because now you've got a head pressure that'll modulate a lot better than having the pump switch on and off, right?
This will allow a little bit of relief to our Mountain Home Estate system, which is the one I think you're referencing. So this will now allow those pumps to actually shut off at a period of time, and we'll be able to run off the tank and this booster station. So it'll give those a little bit of a break, and it'll still add storage to the system, which
Drain
is
at day,
important.
fill at night routine.
Right.
That's what we're hoping. You know, I was pretty impressed. I saw 2 properties coming through town today, and I think we got quite a bit of rain a little bit of rain in the last few days. Boy, their sprinklers were going, and I'm going, oh, you don't have to do that right now. Thank you for the revenue, but you really don't have to do that. It doesn't help, but. And part of it is just trying to educate people, you know, and you know, the automatic sprinklers and stuff. That's where a lot of the stress comes on our system. It's that. But I like Casey's optimism, because she said that if we had the tank and booster station, the outage wouldn't have happened.
Well, the outage
break
might
would
have
have
happened. Yeah, the break would have happened, but we
Wasn't a
wouldn't have
break. You guys
had.
had to make a cut in the road. That's
Yes.
what the break was. I know. that.
Yes. Yeah, I guess I should clarify. We wouldn't have had that many customers out of service. So we would have been able to respond to the situation much faster and not have inconvenienced as many people.
During the construction, they had
Where,
to go
where,
across.
where was this
Pillsbury.
cut in the road?
They had to go across Pillsbury.
Yeah, that was in a different location though.
Yeah,
No,
it,
it had
it,
nothing
it
to do
wasn't.
with that.
Yeah,
It was down
yeah.
on
It
the
wasn't
other
related to our
side.
project at
Then there
all,
was a split
but
in
But that's the second one we've had on Pillsbury Road in the last year. So, I would, like anybody, I wish this thing was done, but you know, it's gonna be there, so.
yeah, we're getting there.
For those who don't know about legislation and DES, I was on the original system with Policy Well.
Yes.
And every weekend through July and August, we had no water. No water.
Yep.
So I filed a complaint with the DES. The next thing you know, they handed them the whole system.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that, John. But I think that, you know, when we look at it, the project it really benefits existing customers in that it's going to modulate, you know, pressure fluctuations and be redundant and everything. And we can actually now bring water in directly from Manchester through the Mammoth Road connection, but also to all the town can be served through the connection we have with Derry as a redundancy as well too. So we can bring water in both ways. This is huge. So we're pretty excited about it, and hopefully we can get it up and running pretty. You know,
But you don't have your own source of water,
not
right? You get your water from Manchester Water Works.
that's correct.
And
Yeah.
they get the water from Massabesic?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious, how often, or when was the last time that Manchester Water Works water, or Massabesic was tested or sampled?
I
Is it sampled once a month? Is it?
I wouldn't want to speak to their frequency of sampling, but I do know that their compliance sampling, when we talk about things like PFAS and other things, are usually quarterly that they pull those. There's other things that are daily, if not weekly, that they're pulling samples and checking for. Their laboratory staff is right up there, and they've written the book on a lot of this stuff, so they do a really good job.
It's their own lab.
They have the lab, and then they contract out, like us, we have to contract out to specialty labs for that. So we can't test for PFAS, we don't, all of our compliance goes to second-party labs, or if you want to call it
John, my
that.
understanding is they do both, their internal lab plus the required external lab.
Right,
Plus, they've gone now to the 6-month chlorinated, and what's the other term?
chloraminated.
Chloraminated.
'cause-
So it alternates for better bacterial coverage, right?
Right, and what happens is there, with the chloramines, it's a very effective, but it also, depending on the time of the year, the temperature of the water, you get uptake of the chloramines, and things can happen, so you gotta change over to chlorine, and, we in Pennachuck, we're strictly a chlorinated system, so we don't do the chloramines.
So those monitoring results go to DES and to EPA?
Yes, DPA, the New Hampshire DES is the primary agency with respect to water quality, because
Drinking water,
from
yeah.
drinking water. So all of the compliance samples that we have go, whether it's them or any public water system, go directly to DES. Yeah, and I do know that Manchester, if you're curious about, the water quality, their water quality, annual water quality report is essentially our water quality report for the majority of Londonderry. Now, like I said, I guess it would be more of the southerly, westerly part of, there is a couple small little neighborhoods that are that are Pennachuck water, and then there's, what we have coming through Hudson is a combination of Hudson and Pennachuck water, along Route 102. Hickory Woods, Avery Estates primarily. And we do have a couple little community water systems. I think it's called Harvest Village off of West Road. There's some condominiums there. And then there's just north of Gordon Drive, up on the hill, Parish Hills, they call it. Yeah. They have individual wells out there. But,
So in
you know,
terms
for
of-
that system, but
In terms of the PFAS being tested 4 times a year, do you know what the last results were for the PFAS testing?
from Manchester,
Right.
I do know that there was a sample
They were
that was
above the 4
above
parts
the
per trillion.
EPA, but was definitely below the state standard. I don't know what that level was. I only know that because there was a conversation going on in the office, and I haven't looked at it myself. But yeah, I heard that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Right. We in our raw water sources, we have it as well too. We're above the state standard. If you looked at Pennachuck Brook system, the Merrimack River tends to be, you know, in that detection limit 3, sometimes 4. You know, so we're below from the Merrimack River has actually been below the, you know, consistently below the
State.
EPA standard, which is it's just volume. It's dilution, really. I think, but. Our treatment facility, we use activated carbon as our filter media, so it's removing that, and we monitor that quite frequently. I think Hannah, we pretty much take samples weekly, you know. So we're doing that just for our own edification. Number one, we don't have to do that by regulation, but we want to find out how well it's performing. And stay on top of it, because you think about it, we take a sample in a week, it might take 4 weeks to get the results back based on what we're seeing for turnaround times in PFAS sampling.
What are your PFAS numbers coming out of those activated charcoal? Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned that the PFAS standard out of Pennachuck Brook is higher than the Merrimack River. I got a little problem understanding that, because you pump water out of the Merrimack River into the reservoir for Pennachuck Brook, and I can understand
Yeah.
why the
Well,
river
Ray,
water.
Ray, we don't do that anymore. Okay, so but we can use the 2 sources independently. We don't pump direct. We pump directly from the river into our treatment facility.
Okay.
Okay, and there are times of the year where we'll have to, because of water quality, if you see heavy rainfalls, like if this was a real hurricane that finally made it up to us, we'd probably have some really chocolate milk water in the Merrimack that's really hard to treat. So we would switch over to the Pennachuck Brook, knowing that we have the carbon that can take care of the PFAS that's in Pennachuck Brook.
Okay, so just to clarify, the water out of the reservoir in Pennachuck Brook is, the PFAS is less than what's in the Merrimack River.
No, actually, that's just the opposite. Pennachuck Brook has higher concentrations of PFOA, and than the Merrimack River does,
And why do you think that is?
because we've tested it.
No.
Oh, why do I think? Oh,
why is it?
okay. Oh, I'm just. No, it's a combination of a number of things. There's some industrial and commercial areas, and there's been releases. If you think about it, Merrimack, 2 of their wells, 7 and 8, I believe, are along a tributary called Witches Brook, and that has elevated levels of PFAS based on some industrial contamination that had happened over time. You're seeing some areas around, you know, some of the other tributaries that you see elevated levels in Pennachuck Brook. You know, over by the airport and things, you know, it's hard. And you know, we're finding it everywhere. So, you know, your septic system, the stuff you use in your property. I live in Stratham, and I'm not anywhere near Pease. And we have PFOA in our private well of 9.5. I have a treatment system in my house for it, but it's there. And yeah.
Well,
Which
we know where that's from. That's from firefighting foam, Stratham Fire Department.
Well, and we're not even in the same hydraulics as that. That's why it just doesn't make sense either way. Yes, there is an area in Stratham, absolutely that is, but we're 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from that, and we're 4 or 5 miles away from Pease, And, we're seeing we didn't mean to do it, but we're probably doing it to ourselves because of all the products and all the things that we use that contain this stuff that goes in our septic system and gets in our.
Manufacturers that put it into the
Yep.
products have done it to ourselves. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
that we have
Well,
done it to ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I
Yeah.
mean, but I mean, it's just, we all take a
Well,
deep breath and
it's,
deal with it.
unfortunately, it's there, and it's not going away, and that's what we're dealing with, so we're all trying to deal with it.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. No.
Thank you.
So I think,
One quick question
Sure.
for Casey before she leaves.
just one, please. Give her 5.
And look at the PSO
How
numbers.
is the new pump station powered, and does that differ from the other ones?
Yes, it is.
Nope, it'll be along the same route. So we connect into the existing electrical system in the area, and that's how we power the station. Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
and then
Okay.
is there an on-site diesel backup?
We do have a generator, yes, but that is natural gas. So not diesel, natural gas. We tapped into the gas line for that.
Yep, all right, thank you.
Okay, I think you said you wanted to give her one more question.
Sure, yeah.
Somebody mentioned, maybe you did, John, that with the new system, meaning the 20-inch line and the water tank,
Not that
you have 2 sources. You also have a source from the town of Derry. We already have a source from the town of Derry, but this new system's not going to change that.
So
Go ahead.
Thank
You
you.
know how it works.
So the way the existing Londonderry system works right now is we purchase water from Manchester through our Mountain Home Estates system. Yep, and we send that down. So that's I'll call it the 620 hydraulic grade zone.
Right.
And then we send that down through a pressure reducing valve into our 498 zone.
Right.
So right now, as the Londonderry system is, we don't have a way to pull that water from the 498 zone into our 620.
Right.
So if we have a water main break in the 620 that's on a critical line, then that puts out the downstream area of that 620 and the 498, except if we pull water from the dairy system. Then we can feed the 498. But we can't get that up to that 620
Right, you
zone.
can't fight it to 698. Right.
Exactly. Yep. So
Right.
now this booster station will connect the 498 and the 620. So we'll be allowed to pull water from the 498 up to the 620 now. So if we have that same break in that critical line in the 620 and it puts out the 620 and 498, we'll be able to pull water from dairy, feed that 498, boost it from this station, and feed the 620 zone. So now you can kind of think of it as a circle almost. So we
Yeah.
can go down and we can go up now. Whereas before we could only go down and sideways. So it kind of makes a full circle of redundancy.
Yeah, okay.
Sideways.
Okay.
Dairy's over here a little
Okay,
bit.
all right.
The pipes are all going to be connected
Pipes are all going to
together
be
at some point.
connected. Yep. Yep. And you'll have storage in the system, which is great.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, that's the advantage of
Mm-hmm.
this new tank. You're going to have storage,
Yep.
and you're going to also provide some additional fire protection.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
And it all became much clearer with the hand signal.
Good.
Hand signals.
I'm a very visual person, so
I was trying to step aside a little bit.
give him an elbow, just look the other way.
It's called emphasis.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So the one other thing that Casey and Mark, and I know it was one of the questions, is that early on, we had been involved with a preliminary design, engineering, more of an engineering evaluation of within the Saint-Gobain consent area off of High Range Road. That included parts of High Range Road, but was it Royal and others and all up through that area. Mark back here and Casey completed that preliminary engineer and what it would take, whatever, and we were Saint-Gobain funded that and we provided them those results. Beyond that, we are aware of that project that's going on, or potential of that project, and how the community is working with Saint-Gobain. The DES is a number of that type of thing going on, but we're kind of off to the side right now. We're just waiting for direction. What do we want to do? But that effort is still out there. Casey is working on and Mark are actually, the three of us, I say the royal we, but more Casey than, we're working with to get a proposal, a scope to design an extension from that South Road project, the community water system project, to be able to help the town move that, their intentions of going up Parmentier Road or, Parmentier, yes. I always say perimeter, but that's the airport.
Yeah.
But Parmentier, and then as far as we can get with some local funding up High Range. So that we should have that before, and I think the idea is to get a contractor under contract before the end of the year, which is a real reasonable effort by us. It's gonna take a little bit of work, but it'll happen, just to get a contractor, and we're helping the town, just like we did on Lancaster Drive over there. So that's kind of the project side of things.
And where is that money coming from since St. Gobain is essentially pulled out?
I can't say that I can't confirm nor deny what St. Gobain
Reports.
has done, but I do know that there is funding. I think there was some ARPA funding, federal funding that came through, which I think is administered through the DES as well. But also too, they were, I think, Mike and their consultants, Weston and Sampson and others, were successfully put forward an application to the New Hampshire Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund for additional monies. That was about maybe a month and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
So that's where some other funds are going to come through for this as well.
So the way that water is going to come down for High Range is from that south Mammoth Road area?
It could actually, if you think about it, there's initially, depending on how things happen in that whole on High Range, some of it could initially come from the north, from Manchester off of Harvey Road, and come south, because we have our Brook Park system that's up to the north end, that's all fed by that we purchased from Manchester. Or it could come around the horn and come back up. So at some point they'll end up probably meeting in the middle somewhere. And how that all gets constructed, I just don't know at this point. It all depends on who funds and how it gets funded.
Are you suggesting that you think starting at Parmenter Road and moving north up High Range is where it should start?
I'm not saying that, no. But what I'm saying is that there's still this other larger project that's out there, and one of the things that, and again, this was, and it wasn't a unilateral decision, and part of it makes sense right now, we don't, with the funding that you have, it's really to address how should I say it? It's to really start to move water from the south to the north. That's kind of what the funding that the town of Londonderry has. So when we look at that, that would ultimately, when it was first conceived, would marry into the work that St. Gobain was supposedly saying that they're going to do, which I can't comment on or have any. But at that point there, that is the kind of the likely area. So it's the idea is to get, I think was just to supplement and get as much of that High Range Road work done. But I can't tell you the status of those negotiations and where they're at.
Okay, so my concern is this. We have municipal water, Pennachuck Water, on 102 as far as Cross Farms, okay?
Yep.
There is no connection from there going west.
Nope.
That needs to, I'm suggesting that it would be a good idea to extend that, at least if you want to start at Parmenter, or somebody wants to start at Parmenter and go up, you need to have a municipal source there.
Right.
And so that hasn't happened, and I don't know who is looking at that or thinking about that, because it's going to happen. It needs to happen.
Right. Well, and part of the reason why it's starting on Old Nashville Road is because there's the community water system is extending it this far, so to speak. All right. So now we're actually closer to Parmentier than we are to Cross Farm. So it's you know, you're closer, so now you can extend off that one. You could do it at either one because they're the same pressure, they're the same everything.
So there is a plan to run it up Old Nashua Road
Yeah.
to them. I think we would like to know where that's at.
Right, and I think, and that's where we've been working with the town and their consultant, Weston and Sampson. We owe Mr. Malaguti a proposal to finish the design for him and be able to get that project out to bid.
Okay.
And that's what our goal is, to have that out in bid and your contractor secured before the end of the year.
So that makes perfect sense.
Yep. Every now and then, sometimes in the water business, we can make sense of stuff, but, you know, it just, you know, because if Londonderry had no water system, we would never have built it the way it is today.
Yeah.
You know, it just, you wouldn't have done that.
Personally, I would-
I think about it as the house. It starts out this small, but then you have, the family grows and you add on to it here. You add on to another one, family keeps growing, and now we're gonna have a little farm, and you see all this thing, but you would never have built the house the way that you would have done it. You know, that's just kind of the way that I look
Yeah,
at the
personally,
London.
I would like to see the main feeder go all the way down Mammoth Road, all the way to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, and at some point, maybe that should happen too. but-
So I got a question, John, Casey perhaps. So once we have a plan, once the engineering's done for High Range Road, how long is that project? How long does it take to lay that project in the ground?
It all depends on how far we go with it, and
Yeah.
what we can afford, what the town, with the money they can afford. But full construction season,
Yeah, I would say so. We'd probably have some restoration into the following year, with that being pavement and lawn restoration and stuff like that. But yeah, it all depends on how much money the town can actually secure from DES, and that'll determine how far we can go.
Okay, so I don't know if you have a metric for how many linear feet of pipe you can lay in a day or in a month or something like that. I know there's a lot of dependings on there, right? with,
The
ledge
big
and-
factor that we have in this area is the ledge,
Yep.
because that will really slow us down. So our first step in this process is actually going to be getting a contractor in to do ledge probes to determine the amount of ledge. So once we get that value, we'll have a better idea, because ledge really, really slows down a project.
Is that the hard rock, the granite?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
bedrock,
bedrock, yep.
I
Yeah.
thought ledge probes were already done.
They were on part of it. So that was, part of High Range Road was covered, and some of the roads west, that was in that St. Gobain consent decree area.
Okay.
The ledge probes that we're gonna do now are from the end of that main extension on Old Nashua Road, west on Old Nashua Road, up Parmentier, I always say it wrong, I apologize, and then up High Range Road until we meet the St. Gobain area, just so that we get that whole area covered. So, yeah, those still need to be done.
I'm just curious, when the testing is done, if, just say for PFAS or PFOA or the 6 PFAS chemicals, EPA has come out with, how do people find out? Do they hear from you? Do you send notices out that right now the latest test shows that PFOA is at, 6.6?
Yep, so.
I mean, how does the public find out that there are higher levels than EPA has stated?
Right now,
Because the
yeah.
state's gonna have to come down to the 0.4 parts per trillion.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where it's going, so, but
they have to.
right now, the standard, the standard is the state standard until, we hear otherwise, but we're already under the requirements to start our monitoring and reporting, the levels, which we've been doing since 2016.
Yeah.
If you go on our webpage, it's kind of a little bit, and this is one of those where we're working to revise it. Our results are, under our water system. It would be under the column like My Water System. You can type in Londonderry, and you can get to some of our sampling results.
Right.
Each year, what they call it the Consumer Confidence Report. We'll have the results from Manchester. We always refer customers. And we have to produce a consumer confidence report that we either we're emailing now, we send it electronically, but you can access through the webpage. But it's essentially Manchester Waterworks results when we look at PFAS and stuff, because it's a source, it's in the sources. It's not gonna be reestablished in the
But to her-
pipes or anything.
But do
But to
people
her
have,
question, they don't
Yeah, I wanna-
advertise it.
right,
Yeah,
I want to know whether
Yeah.
or not people have to go to your website?
Yeah,
Yes.
we,
Or whether or
Right.
not that information is sent out in some way to the
no,
public?
it's sent out in the form of, the Consumer Confidence Report, the notification, then you can go look for it, but you do have to look for it.
But
Number
that
two,
comes out
yeah.
once a year?
That's once a year, but our results are there, in the, if there was a violation, you would be receiving written notice.
So I just showed Ann the webpage that they do have Manchester Waterworks. It's a yearly report. They say it's quarterly, but
Yeah.
it's very hard to find. Matter of fact, the last one I found was 2023.
Right.
You can find the 2024. You can actually go very much deeper and find all the tests.
Yep.
But then you have to dig down through 100 pages.
Yeah.
So it's not forward pushing like I think it should be. Right.
Right, I think there's a lot of, as we're starting to get through this, I think we can learn a little bit from some other parameters that we have, but we haven't learned enough of that, and I think this is where, I think there's a lot of improvements in communication that we can do. We want to be careful, we want to be,
Sorry to interrupt, but this is kind of crucial. So, I mean, if people are just looking at that once-a-year conference report, and they've been drinking the water for a year, and said that the PFAS is up at 6 or 12 or 40 or whatever it's up at, they hear about this after they've been drinking the water for a year.
yeah, and I think,
Kind of a problem.
I think if it was that high, Manchester Water or Pennachuck would notify the
Well,
people.
that's what I'm asking.
yeah, if it's above,
That's what I'm asking.
well, what I guess is that
There's
we're
a
in, if we're in
routine
compliant,
way
if
to
we're
do
in
that.
compliant, and this is, I don't mean to parse words out a little bit here, but the requirements, we'll meet the state's requirements of what notifications and publications are. So and that's what we're doing right now. If there was a violation, if we were found in violation of the standard, there's a whole different ballgame in that we are now above the standard, blah, 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 here's what we're doing, this is how we're taking care of this. But I think that when you look at it, if we're looking at if we were to take our Pennachuck Waterworks system, there's about 30,000 customers, and that means mail-ins to, each quarter 30,000. It is sometimes more effective. You get it when you bill, and what happens half the time, people don't even read their bill. So that's why I think we have to find a middle ground that's a little bit better that we can communicate.
It's got
to
to be a
people.
lot more often than once a year.
Yeah,
That's
well,
for
and
sure.
I think if maybe it might be, let me say this, maybe it might be something like, we can, on a notification, if we had email addresses, if we had, text messaging, things like that. One of the important things, if you are a customer of ours, we want to make sure that you have updated information, because we've had several times where we've had to shut the water off or had breaks and emergencies where, you don't have an active phone number for a customer. You don't have the right, or it's the wrong phone number because they dropped their house phone. And we each, you see it in the bill, update information, call our customer service, and but we have to have your updated information. And if you have a neighbor or whatever that says, I'm not, make sure that they know too.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious. I mean, usually there are two ways in which violations are discovered. One is if it's from your own reporting, your own monitoring. And then two is if you've had some inspectors out there, either from the state or from EPA, inspecting and doing their own water testing.
Right.
And I guess that process for notifying people, usually if there's a violation and it's based after an inspection, people will hear about it because DES will put out a press release or EPA will put out a press release.
Sometimes.
We always do.
Yeah.
I worked at EPA for
Yeah.
42 years. And we normally put out press releases, especially in big cases. But maybe this is a state issue and not your issue, because you said, you're going to follow the state requirements for notification. But
And also too, I have spun out, some of our notifications that come out are very specific. We have to say it in certain ways. There's forms that we have to use.
Right.
And even in theory, if we had a bacteria violation,
Right.
we actually have to, our first reaction is let's get notification out. Let's start phone call, send out the automatic phone calls and everything else. But in reality, we can get in trouble for that because they haven't, the DES hasn't approved the notification yet. So, and we have the results, and it could be a Saturday or whatever. So we always try to err on the caution. It's like that's something where we would, how should we say it? Ask for forgiveness later, because it's the right thing to do. So, but anyway.
We're not completely without an information infrastructure. Imagine that we, the town staff, the committee, one person had a link to your reporting system, even if it's the weekly one. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't then make that available. We have a town-wide email blast that anybody can sign up for, roads closed, police incident, whatever. So I don't know that we need to ask these folks to invest a lot of big bucks into changing something. What we need is access to what they already know, and then we could use our own infrastructure to get the word out when
Right.
it's appropriate, or post it so that if a curious person that there's no alert needed, but let's check and see what the readings are today, can just come to the town websites. Here they
Well,
are.
if there were a regular notification to the town, and the town put out a blast, that's fine, but it doesn't sound like there's regular notification to the town, or to Mike, or to the engineer here, that there is a routine notification process that's been set up. And that sounds like it has to come from, at the state
Mr.
level. It's the
Chair, if I may.
state telling these guys what the notification process is. I mean, it sounds like it's a partially legislative issue unless they volunteered to do it.
Or the PUC would have to get involved, PUC, DES. I
Mr.
would
Chair, if
think.
I
Not
may,
for
point of
use.
order, as the person who does the website and occasionally does like sleep. John, I think I heard both John and John discuss some improved communication options and things. And, from our end, from the technical end, we'd be happy to post and share along with Mike's suggestion about that. And I think that's definitely something we can explore.
The quarterly reports, it sounds like.
So
they're
we
doing
can certainly explore that.
that's
Sure.
beautiful.
We could have a
In
talk
that-
with
in that-
engineering.
Monthly report, I can include the webpage and the link. I do have it somewhere. When I first joined the committee, you told me to go look. It
Yeah.
took me a whole day to find it,
All right.
and it was like 100 pages deep. But again, that is something for the committee I could post the link to each month. But to Ann's point, she's concerned that the public does not get a push out to this information. I would expect they would get a push if there was
There's
some
E.
kind of,
coli,
right, if there's E.
know
coli,
it.
right, or something like that.
In the hospital.
But for example, the 23 report said Massabesic was 4.28, and the Merrimack River was not available. So, but I don't know if people realize they do pull from the Merrimack River also, so. So, but good, it's
Yeah,
communication.
I think there's definitely opportunities. I'm sorry.
Are we gonna hear from your other staff as well?
I don't know what they really want. Hannah's one of the, but no. What I did was I wanted to bring the other staff here just so that you start to put names and faces.
Sure.
So Hannah is kind of, on the treatment side. That's Hannah. Noah, she has no blame in any of this because she just started in June. So
I thought you blamed the new hire.
Yeah.
no, we don't want her, John. We don't want her to quit. So. and like I said, Pete has his work and knowledge of Penachuk in the system. He's been one of our longer tenured employees, and Mark has been with us since when, Mark? 2014, and has served as our construction manager. And he's handled a lot of the projects that we had, over in Litchfield. And I told him once all he had to do was worry about Litchfield, and he told me I was a liar. But But anyway, but Mark's been with us and a lot of construction experience and works closely with your town engineer, John Trottier, on a number of these things we've got going on. So the Lancaster Drive and plus other things as well too. So it was important. It's important for us to know who your water company is. I don't think we could ever expect to see this kind of a crowd from another utility, and I think it's really important. And my role as CEO is to make sure you know who we are, that we're here, and we're here to try to do the best job that we can. So if there's any questions ever, let me know. But I do want to make sure that you all are invited. So Lynn, I'll work with you.
Please do.
We can what we'll do is we'll throw a few dates. I think probably it would be like a late afternoon or like a 4 or 5, whatever people get out of work and stuff, that they could meet over in our facilities over there. The tours would probably take, probably about an hour for the plant, and maybe about a half an hour, 45 minutes for our distribution facility.
Okay, great.
As well. They're right next to each other, so, I mean, you just have to get in a car and go drive to the next one, but unless you want to walk through it's a lot of mosquitoes these days. But you can walk through the woods. Yeah, I'm sorry.
If I can summarize, we could say that there's many projects going on, and that we collectively have a pretty good handle on the who, what, where, when, why, how much of all of them, with the exception of what's going to happen on High Range Road, where we're going north, but we don't know quite how far. We're going south, but we don't know quite how far. So that's probably the biggest project that we've talked about tonight. So what can you do to not close any doors as we progress through this work from both ends?
I think what I've always encouraged people, let's make sure whatever we do, it fits in the grand scheme of things. It's adaptable. It's resilient to changes, because sometimes we just don't know what's going to happen. And so let's make sure that we install things that are going to be compatible in multiple ways, depending on how things develop out. Part of what you're seeing here, in this area around 102 between Hudson and the Lake and the Litchfield side of things is, as time goes on, these pipes are going to get closer and closer, and things are going to connect. It's just going to happen, okay? But make sure that we set it up so that that now you've got Manchester and you've got Pennachuck that can be the source. Think about having redundant sources and having that kind of the horsepower to be able to support this region. There was the South Central regional study that DES had funded and put out there. If you have a chance, you should read it. And if you don't have it, I can send a link to you all, and just so that you can pass it along. But it really looked at the whole South Central region. Now, it's a planning. We're now and I caution this. Even though you could put water mains in every single road in every, all of these communities, you can't. It's number one. Even though it's technically feasible, economically, it's going to be a real challenge. The other thing is that there are some areas that don't lend themselves to water expansion, and that's where it's valid. Stratham is where I live. We're not even close to a public water system. We don't even have a source of water. We try to go to, if you were to try to go to Portsmouth, they don't have enough water. If you go to Exeter, they don't have enough water. So, I mean, we're in it for private wells, and the spacing of the homes is so far apart. That's where treatment systems in homes. Unfortunately, usually it falls upon the homeowner to deal with that. But I will say the treatment system that I have, my wife laughed at me when I built it, but we're at 0 parts per trillion. So we're non-detect. I can't say 0. We're at non-detect. Okay, because that's like what 16 places past the decimal point. That's a lot of zeros after that decimal point. So
I'd just like to say, I think our main focus and concern is this water line on High Range Road, and where it's coming from, who's going to do it, how far it's going to go, what direction it's going to come from. But ultimately, we want to get clean municipal water to the people that most need it. And those are people that are within the consent decree within the town of Londonderry, which I would like to know, and maybe it's not you to answer, but how far south does this supposed consent decree, which, by the way, Londonderry was not even part of initially, how far south on High Range Road does the consent decree go?
Trying to think, if you look at the DES's sampling map.
It stops at
Yeah.
Royal Lane.
Huh?
Royal
Stops
Lane.
at Royal?
It
Yeah.
stops at Royal.
The
It stops.
intersection of Royal Lane.
Stops at Royal.
Well,
Correct,
But,
yeah.
Okay.
but wait, but hold on, no, the consent degree, in the consent degree, the Saint-Gobain responsibility area is bigger than that.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
It's, if, you'd have to go to the DES as well, it's a large, it covers pretty much all of Litchfield, goes a little bit into Hudson, swings around, but it should be available, oh, good, here we go, I think we're,
Yep, she's right there.
yeah.
It's everything west of High Range Road.
Yep,
what?
Yeah.
Not east of High Range.
everything west.
But that consent
but how
decree
far
is
south?
still pretty
I know
arbitrary.
in
I
that consent
mean,
decree, the last home is at Royal Lane.
Yeah.
I don't know if it extends a little beyond Royal Lane, but I know the last parcel was at,
Yeah.
as far as Saint Gobain is responsible.
Because the concern is, you know, as far as St.
folks are
Gobain,
outside.
St. Gobain, they're not gonna wanna contribute
Oh, yeah,
to
there it
anything
is.
that's
Yep.
not,
And
you
if
know,
you go to
south
the
of the
information
consent
center,
decree.
Or the PFAS sampling dashboard, either
yeah,
way.
there it is, that's the one.
That's the next question, you're gonna like this.
Yeah, pull it up.
We look at this a lot. If you
Yeah, we look at this a lot, yeah,
Oh, I believe you.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't contaminated private wells
Oh, not really.
outside the
Oh,
consent
no,
decree.
Correct.
there are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that the numbers aren't high numbers. And we know that the consent decree boundary line was pretty arbitrary at the time. So, I mean,
So
I
it's-
think one of this is sort of getting to is partially, what do you all have a vision, and maybe it's in this South Central Regional Study, depending on when that was done. Is there any vision or thought given to what areas of Londonderry do have the most serious problems? And it could be everything from radon to arsenic to, you know, PFAS. Which areas need portable water, municipal water, more than other areas? And is there any vision year by year as to when there will be an infrastructure put into place where people who are now on private wells would be getting
Well,
this water?
I'm glad you asked, because that's one of the questions that was on here that you all had asked. And Jeff and I had a conversation about this because he was kind of curious about it the other day. You know, the vision is really not ours. Okay, we, as a public utility, we can't say, we're gonna go and put water main in these
Or
areas.
we would like to, or we have.
Whether we will
option.
not be allowed.
Right.
Right, because otherwise, if nobody connects, then existing ratepayers are on the hook, or the company, and that's what got Consumers Water Company, who used to own the system here in Londonderry, in trouble. They just started, we'll build it and hope they will come. But no, we can't be that type of an investor in those. But others, the town, others, agencies, others can fund those expansions. And where it's our franchise, as long as we have the source capacity and they're paying 100% of those costs, whoever's paying 100%, they can extend the water system. But we don't have a plan. We don't have a plan, and it's really not for us to do that planning. But I'd be lying to you if we don't sit there and look at it and say, okay, what happens if Londonderry came to us tomorrow and said, what about this area? What would we do?
Right.
Or how does this blend in? Now, if you were all as part of the town's master plan, and, you know, I think, you know, there's usually a master planning process. You know, we'd be more than happy to help. We'd be happy to participate in that and provide you with some of our thoughts and all of that. But the reality is that as you start to get further and further away from the system, the barriers or the financial barriers become really difficult to overcome. Water main goes in. It's not an inexpensive endeavor. I know that in Nashua, you know, Pete, we're seeing $300, you know, with restoration, $300 to $400 a foot without question. Here, yeah, and even that.
So John, this is not political, put you on the spot.
Sure.
And I know, you have to go before, is it DES or for
PUC.
rate,
Public
PUC,
Utility
right? is there a way you could put together a proposal for a rate increase for all the users to fix one system at a time? Because look,
Well-
it's financial,
Yep.
right?
We do, John, I want to be careful how I answer that
I know.
because when we talk about rates, that's one of the thing is when you look at at a utility, everybody kind of shares in the cost, right? But that's existing users, okay?
Right.
All new growth is usually, I'm not aware of any instance in New Hampshire that new growth is, it allows us to fund with existing ratepayers' dollars, new growth.
That's,
It's
touchy.
It's like almost a non-starter.
but we got the state who's very aware of this problem.
Right.
And the feds. I mean,
Right.
we get money from the
And then,
infrastructure.
Right.
I'm thinking as a corporation, you approach a state, say, we want to do this is how much it's going to cost. We would like a 5-year rate hike to cover the bond to do it.
Right, well, in the 5-year rate, yeah, so now existing customers, if
Yeah,
you're a
we'd be
customer,
paying.
you're paying for it.
Right.
That's probably not gonna fly. It's probably, and I'd say, there's, a snowball's chance in a hot place, I think, just because of the nature of all this. But if the town were to go and say, we've got a plan, state, we want you to fund this, or we want to take out a loan or a bond, and we want to pay to have the system expanded, the town can certainly do that.
Yes.
Okay? But we as a corporation can't take that responsibility and say, okay, now we spend 10, 15 million dollars and have to raise it, and oh, by the way, that Londonderry will be taxing us on that water main too, so I have to add that in.
Let me give you a different view.
We're not,
If I want to move to Londonderry, I have a choice to move where there's an existing water line.
yeah,
And just plug in, off we go. Or I can go choose to live way over here where there's no water line. And if I chose that, would you be willing to pay for my new house and my new water line? That's the, am I correct?
yeah,
That's it, that's
that
it,
is
In
it.
essence, that's the issue.
It is.
I make the choice,
Yeah.
but you're gonna pay? That doesn't work here.
Yeah.
But there are instances, like a Flint, Michigan, where the feds say, okay, we have a serious problem
Right.
here, and we're gonna pay for new piping to go to these folks' houses. And that doesn't happen every place in every single state, but it's, most of the money that comes to DES comes from the feds first.
Right.
And so it's, and there are things, appropriations that can be put, there are lots of things that can be done for towns to get money. So it does behoove us, or the town, to have its own, and Martha's on our master plan committee, a plan to expand, to potentially expand, or at least know which areas of Londonderry have a more serious water contamination problem than other areas of town, so that the water and the pipes can be provided to those areas. I'm gonna ask kind of, and maybe this is sort of a naive question. Once somebody else pays for the pipes, right, whoever it is, what level of government it is, and you guys are providing, you then come in and you're providing all the water, who then who owns those pipes?
If it's what will happen is if it's in our franchise areas, they get turned over to us. Otherwise, you'd have to be your own, what's that?
For free?
Yep, for free.
But then they pay the
but-
future maintenance.
Yep.
And taxes.
And you
They
pay
for
tax
it.
to the
And we pay
town.
tax to the town for it.
Right.
And in 100 years from now, or hopefully 100 years, we hope, that when it comes time to replace it, then the utility is on the hook to replace it. Just like a developer. If a developer extends to their subdivision or a commercial site or whatever, they install all the main to our specifications, we take it over, we own it, it's ours now. And so whatever happens, we have to fix and maintain it. Now, there are some places, for instance, a couple of these community water systems where there's just gonna be a master meter. And it'll go in because the piping system is not to our specifications, we don't know where it is, we can't fix it, we're not gonna take ownership of that. So, if they wanna go and replace everything, that's one thing, but there'll be just a master meter for those types of scenarios as well.
So that brings a question. Okay, so, the town goes to the state, the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund, ARCA, whatever, gets money to move forward with a project to put pipes in the ground. And you folks work with us to put pipes in the ground, and then the pipes are turned over to you. Okay? You know, we've had other discussions, and that is, suppose we wanted to do like other towns have done, for instance Hudson, and decide they're going to run their own system. We've thought of discussing that. But at that point, we would have to buy the pipes from you that have been turned over to you.
Well, I'll be, and this is kind of the really interesting complexity of this. That, if they get turned over, we don't pay anything for it. It's called contributions in aid of construction. It's called, the term is kayak. We book it, we pay taxes on it, but it has no value, so to speak, because somebody else paid for it. All right, so if you look at our book value, we don't have any value on that. Now, in 100 years from now, when we replace it, it has value and it's ours and it will have value. So there's always been this base number that when Penachuk, through the work with Hudson, acquired the Londonderry systems, there is an equity component in there where we actually had to pay real money for those assets. And there's investments that we're making. So, you know, roughly 49% of that tank, 49% of that transmission main, 49% of that booster station is ratepayer. You know, it's being funded by the ratepayers in its own. It's not contributed capital. Whereas the other half that Woodmont's paying for goes in as contributed capital. So there's some weird nuances in this. You know, so you think about it, we're replacing water mains. Pete has a couple projects in Nashua where the late 1800s is when the water main went in. What do you think the value of that water main is now for a book value? Probably really, really low, but we're replacing it with millions of dollars, you know, so the value now goes up.
So if we were even thinking of doing that, you're saying it would have a high value from your standpoint, and you would
Yep, you'd have
want a lot of money for it.
We would have to make what's on the books, but also too, it's not us. It's fully us to decide, okay? Because if you remember, you know, when you start to pull pieces out of a utility, that means fixed costs have to get borne by a smaller number of people.
Exactly.
Right? Which is, I don't know if you remember, any of you were around when Nashua decided to, you know, that they wanted to take the eminent domain fight and they acquired the stock ownership. It was like, okay, we just want Nashua, and everybody else has to fend for themselves. Well, the PUC said, no way. You're taking the biggest nut out of this and all these fixed costs. You have to, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to pay an extra $40 or $50 million or whatever it was at the time, because there's going to be harm on that side. So think about it. You know, Londonderry, or if you're Litchfield, you're a large part of a small utility. And when you separate that out, there's going to be some other pain. It's not just the numbers that are on the books. Now, I can't tell you what that is, but based on the experience that we have, you would see those. Then let's talk about licensed operators. Now you got to have licensed operators. You're going to have to, now you might be able to share DPW staff, but you're going to have people who answer the phones, who do the customer service and meter change, all of those things that then now come with, you've just grown up. And, you know, now you've got adult responsibilities that we take.
Personally, I think it's a little late in the game for us to even consider that, but, you know, we got to look at all angles.
You should always look
You know
at
what I mean?
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other thing is, you know, everything's about money, and where's the money come from, and, you know, who's going to do this? And you folks, like the towns, also get federal money. You get hundreds of millions of dollars to update your plant or whatever you're going to do, right?
Well,
So-
let me be careful. We do qualify for grants in some cases, but most of all, you know, we don't qualify like where this competitive. We do get some SRF funding from time to time, but most of all our money is being paid for by, you know, our upgrades to our treatment facilities, replacement of existing water main are all being funded by primarily by debt, whether they be loans from the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund or private bond, you know, the bonding that we do. So yeah, we have to borrow the money to do that. Yes, there's federal dollars, but when we do capital reinvestments throughout all of our systems to the tune of between 10 and $12 million a year, there's not enough SRF money to cover that and not grant money. So we have to go to the bond market or through private, quasi-private, banking to be able to secure the funds to do
The
that.
financial statements are wild.
Oh, well, and then be careful how you look at them, because we have we have to do not only GAAP accounting,
Oh, yeah.
okay, but we also have to do regulatory accounting as well, because the PUC recognizes regulatory accounting, and and then my eyes just glaze over when you start talking the nuance. John, I think you might be able to figure that out a little bit better than me. But, so,
I got a question. I'm gonna roll us back just a little bit, talking about where to expand the system. Assuming that there's a conversation to be had in the future on who pays or where the money comes from, that's something that we as a town will have to figure out. But would you guys and girls, ladies, as someone who lives and breathes water, we're all part-timers, you guys live this, would you have an opinion if you were advising us and say, hey, we're thinking about, what would be areas that would benefit most from expanding out the water main? Not saying, are you gonna write the check, but what places do you think would make sense to be, do this one, and then this one, and then this one, and maybe do one a year, or whatever the tempo is? That's a different question, but the sequencing of who should be first or who should be second,
Right.
based upon engineering purposes, not, your friend lives in this community or something like
Right.
that. Would you have that sort of granularity with the information?
yeah, but I'll volunteer her to do it. No, no, but we would be part of that process. I know that you've had Weston and Sampson has looked at a town-wide evaluation, okay, and we have to look at it in two different ways, and because one is how you build out and what the system looks like. What part of a region does it look like? The system will look different if it's part of a regional system that's connected with Hudson to this, throughout the course. That water system will look a little bit different than if you said, hey, we just want to focus on Londonderry. What does our system have to look at? Two different, there's a lot of similarities, but they will look different, okay? If you need, if we had a storage tank in another system that could easily feed both, you don't need to build that other storage tank. But if you're on your own, you got to have the storage tank. So there's little things like that we think that, we have to just be careful of. But you do have a consultant, and they did the evaluation, which we have up on the screen, which was one of those that, these are some of the areas and some of the things we should be doing. But there's a lot of other, how we connect. Where's the source coming from? Is it going to come north from Manchester? Is it going to come from the west, from Litchfield, or is it going to come from the west from Hudson? Sure. The priorities in there would be important to really review and assess.
We have the Weston Sampson report,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering how your vision compares with what Weston Sampson's put forward.
We're not that far off. I think our changes, if you looked at it, we were having a meeting a little while back. It's part of a regional system that's linked in with, interconnecting water mains. You may not need a 16-inch line, but a 12-inch line would be better. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be everything, because you're pulling water from two directions as opposed to just one. We're seeing a lot of little nuances in how but we're not far off.
Yeah, like the Weston Sampson one envisions having storage tanks in the southern part.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that kind of makes sense too, but
It does.
it makes sense from your standpoint too.
It does, but it also too is that if we're going to be looking at additional storage in the future in Litchfield, that can help support why we don't want to have two tanks, because now we've got more water stored than we need, and that's when you get into issues with water turnover, age, and so when I first started in my career in engineering, the idea was, well, if we're going to build a tank, it only needs to be 1 million. We're going to make it 2 or 3 million because we can make it bigger, and bigger's better. And the next thing you know, we run into one of the Safe Drinking Water Act recertifications, and they came out with these things called trihalomethanes and disinfection byproducts, and they're oftentimes a function of water age. Those big tanks aren't helping on the water quality side of things.
Oh.
So you really want to make sure that you're balancing, you know, so if we have something over here that serves the same purpose, we only want to have to do it once. And that way we all,
We might have some higher elevations in Londonderry versus Litchfield, though.
yeah, you got a couple that I really like in Londonderry, actually.
Yeah.
We've been kind of looking at them, haven't we? And we're saying, that'd be a good spot for a tank. Pretty easy build site, you
Yeah.
know, and maybe a booster station there if we need it, you know, 3-phase power. Yep, okay. You know, looking at, you see, it's very rare that you see a water engineer, somebody in the water business looking up at the sky, but when you're looking for 3-phase power, you want to count the wires.
We got plenty to run through Londonderry.
Yeah, there you go.
We definitely
Yeah.
do.
That is a very different way to look at our town than I think we're used to.
As I stand out in front of my house.
Now you'll be looking up as you drive around, won't you?
Do you have any idea what the timeline is on the pipe that's supposedly going to come across the Merrimack?
We just actually submitted something for review to the DES staff, because the money's all there. It's just a matter, Hudson and us, we're working collaboratively with them. We've asked, you know, our ask is, hey, here's what we're thinking. We want to make sure that we got 2 potential crossing sites. We really want to evaluate one or the other. But both of them go through what was the old Copper's Tie plant, which was west of the river, east of the river, but west of the railroad tracks, where they used to actually bring timber down from the north,
I thought I remembered
kind of
that.
cut it up, make sure it all fit a railroad tie or telephone poles, and then they ship it a little bit further down on the site and have these pits and lagoons that were creosote. So it's the old, that was the technology then. So there's a site, you know, we're not likely crossing where any of the higher levels of contamination are, but they're old rubble pits where they would throw bands of, you know, stuff and everything. So we got to figure out which is the best way to get through that. Yeah, it's no good deed goes unpunished, you know, and so we want to evaluate the idea, and we want to make sure that we get our detailed river surveys done, bathymetric. We want to understand what the river bottom looks like. We did a lot of upfront when we crossed from Merrimack into Litchfield. And what was really interesting there, we thought we could directional drill it, but, you know, just drill underneath the river. But, well, it just so happens that the geology when we started going down wasn't soft. It was real rocky and also, too, there's a highly fractured bedrock system there. It's near a fault.
Yeah.
And so as you start to drill through, it's very difficult drilling, and you have to use these things called drilling muds to lubricate everything. Well, I think we probably would have turned the Merrimack River gray, and I don't think too many people would appreciate it. So we ended up going with a different approach. We want to make sure that we do our due diligence on both of those sites to make sure that, you know, there's not an, oh, I gotcha type thing there. So, you know, a lot of it, we're hoping to have that phase of the project funded and probably complete, you know, before, you know, end of first quarter of 2025. Then we'll have a real clear vision of what the environmental permitting is. The pipe to and from is easy. That's not too big of a deal. But the environmental permitting, you got to go through the natural heritage, all the number of different things, the wetlands permits, and all of that stuff that we may need for this. And then we also have to work with the waste management folks and the responsible party to make sure that we're not getting into something that we don't, you know, want to assume liability
Always
for.
full of surprises, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll take at least, you know, for that project to really be complete, 2 to 3 years. You know, it just, and you can only work in the river in certain times of the year. Not number one, because of fish passage, and number two is you don't want to be there during the high flow periods, and you know, and it gets
Have
pretty
you guys
hectic.
identified the areas where you think you do have some toxic waste areas? Have you
We know
identified
that there's some studies, and we haven't done the due diligence, you know, of reviewing it. But what we did was, we're fortunate that the gentleman at DES, who was the project manager on the site, was able to shed some light and say, okay, chances are you're not going to run into the bad stuff. What you'll run into is more of what they call solid waste. It's, you know,
Right.
when they used to have all
Trash.
the trash, the
Non-toxic
bans.
waste.
Yeah, it's just and all of that presents issues during construction.
Old transformers.
Yeah,
I hope
that's
not,
great.
John, please, you know, I'm hoping they did most of that work when
Transformers.
electricity was around then, so.
So we're approaching an hour and a half for this discussion.
That was fun.
Was interesting.
So I think we probably should think about wrapping it up at this point in time. Are there any other questions? I want to go down through the board to make sure everybody's got their questions answered. Joy, anything?
No, this was great, really informative, and I look forward to the tour.
Okay, yes, we will. We are too.
Great. Paul?
I heard you offer an invitation for us to work with you and maybe look at some funding options and things like that with the town
We'll
involved.
support in any way we can. I think as long as there's a, you understand that there's, we have our limitations of what we can and can't do, but we'll, you've got the engineering staff here, and there's others back at our facilities that, have expertise that we're always happy in combining that with your engineers and your engineering staff and planning staff and all of that too. We're more than happy to work on this.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ann?
No,
John?
All set. Oh, real quick, how many inches did you go down before you hit granite over at Gordon Homes?
How many,
How many inches did you go down?
well, actually, it's really funny out on, where you got, well, you're out, where did you, Gordon?
So you got the entrance coming in. If
Yeah.
you go straight across toward Hovey, that's my house.
Okay, oh, really?
That's right.
So in that area, it's interesting because some of the water main is about 9 feet, the pipes, they're only like small, cheaper plastic ones, they're
I know.
about 9 feet deep.
I know.
When we dug, what happened was is they probably put all the pipes in and then they built the roads after, but they didn't have the road design, so they just kept.
That, if
see
you
that?
remember, the two wells were there.
Yeah.
So they teed into the wells there. And then
Yeah.
you guys came in and tapped off and closed the wells. So
Right, yeah, you guys just abandoned those, yep.
Yeah, for the tank side.
Decommissioned, yes, we
Decommissioned,
decommissioned them. So, but yeah, that was an old, small little community water system. We are keeping an eye on those system because that, in the long term, if there were a replacement, reinvestment replacement plan, I would tend to say because of the materials and our experience up there with a couple of the breaks that we've had, that's an area where we would want to get in and take care of. So if John Trotter was to say 3 or 4 years from now, we're going to come in and rebuild all the streets and put in drainage and do that other stuff, it would certainly rise to a priority that we would want to get.
Well, you
that done.
did do that. I don't know if you realize that, but on Hovey Road, you guys
Yeah.
did come in under the big project there to
Right.
redo it and stuff. So you did
Yeah,
put in.
that was before my time, but we,
Thanks.
exactly. No, my time with Penachuk.
Yeah, I got it.
No, but yeah, I mean, we want to make sure, it's like in Pete works closely with the city of Nashua. If they know that they got a sewer project and number of the utilities and try to coordinate as best we can, we want to try to get in there. If you had a real aggressive pavement repaving program, we can't keep up with paving. It's just, so we'll have to wait 5 or 10 years to the next time you pave. But if there's, any kind of reconstruction and things like that, we want to make sure that we get in there. We don't want to be the folks coming in and digging up the street after it has fresh pavement on it if we can help it. So,
Makes sense.
Your turn.
all right,
Martha?
I'm all set, but thank you so much, all of you, for coming.
thank you.
Really informative and very appreciative. Thank you.
Mike?
I agree with Martha. Thank you for your candor and willingness to talk about whatever we wanted to talk about, and for your willingness to share a lot of staff hours with us. We appreciate you all being here.
No, they'll hate me for it tomorrow, but that's okay. No, we have fun.
The morning doesn't come off tomorrow?
Maybe Friday afternoon.
Maybe Friday.
There you go.
Wait a minute.
I'm just.
Jeff?
Going back to the, working on the build out together, would that be your neighbor right next to you? And
Well, it'd
what
be,
was your name?
yeah, all of us, yeah.
Casey.
Casey?
Yep.
Casey what?
Casey Harding.
Pardon me?
Harding.
All right.
Yep.
We're working on the
Like the president.
Warren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I call you Warren? Yeah, we're working on the water master plan, and so
Yep.
you'll be getting questions.
Right. I think so. And if you wanted to have a workshop or a work session with us, that's fine too, and whatever you need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all of you coming, explaining, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Ray.
And I just want to thank you for coming also. And I want to say that the work you guys did in Litchfield, I heard good things about the traffic. So whoever decided to do that, you guys did very well. You guys had police there at both ends. So if you guys could plan to do that here in Londonderry, I just heard good things. That people were not upset with the way that you guys handled the traffic when you guys were doing that construction. So good feedback there.
Okay, thank you. We
Yeah.
appreciate that. We like to hear the good things,
Yeah.
because we usually, you know.
We don't get those often.
Yeah, no, it's-
Usually it's, but yeah, we work
but I
through
heard
it.
good things. They were happy because you had officers on each end and directing traffic, and no one had to wait very long. So
Thank you.
John?
All right.
Thank you. Add to that. A number of us on this committee are also on the town's master plan steering committee. And I made a little note here that you offered up your input on this. That's a trap that'll last you for a whole year.
I know that I'm gonna, well, you might regret it. I might, no. No, but that's what we're here for. I mean, we're part, I mean, I think more than anything, we feel we want to be part of the community. I'm not just saying that because, you know, we want to make sure that things get done right. And if we can get things done in a way that makes logic and sense, it's good for us, it's good for you, it's good for everybody, and we try to do that. So, all right. Thank you.
And, John, I'll
Yep.
say thank you very much to you and your staff. We really do appreciate everybody
Yeah.
coming in here.
All right.
And I think now you have a little bit better understanding of who we are. And, you know, if we can help you in any way, please reach out. you
Yep,
know, because
absolutely.
It's a two-way street. You know,
Yep.
it's a real partnership we
So,
have
you know, we
between
may-
Pennachuck and the town of Londonderry.
We have this little merger thing going on. I think that's gonna be very beneficial to everybody, all of our customers. And I think, there may become a time when, you know, I think through, the town manager, your attorneys and stuff, you know, support, and if there's some London, it could be, but we're well into that process. I think, you know, the types of questions that we're getting now from the DOE, Department of Energy, which was the former PUC staff, and the Office of Consumer Advocate. If those are the questions we're getting, I think we're narrowing down on, you know, the numbers make sense for everybody. Now we've got to work on some of the other resolutions and come to some kind of settlement and work through it. But it's not over the hump yet, but I really, you know, hope that it could be really good for the region if we pull this off. It's going to be great for everybody long-term. You know, whether you're Nashua, whether you're Londonderry, whether you're, you know, in Bedford, whether you're over in our small systems in Newmarket or wherever, it's going to be much, you know, it's going to be better off for everybody.
Great.
I had one last quick.
Has that hearing been set?
No, there's a session there's another technical session that's coming up at the end of the month. The procedural schedule's on the webpage of PUC. I can't keep track of it because we got 8 dockets, I think, right now with the PUC on various things.
Is
And I
this
wouldn't.
your consolidation?
Yes,
with
yeah,
us?
yeah.
I mean,
DW
is
it's
that,
D-
I mean, I'm not
DW
sure that that's necessarily within this group's
No, but-
bailiwick or scope.
But pay attention.
We
It's
It's just
Lobbying for
interest.
you,
Yeah.
but
Just
that was
DW
interesting.
23101 is the docket number.
Say again,
So
please.
DW 23101. Yep, and it's all in the virtual file, and I mean, I know that we've responded to some of the data requests and information requests from the town of Londonderry in this. So I think there were some questions that were in the last round of data requests that we've responded to. So it's working through, and we've got, you know, proposals for rate structures that we kind of said, here, let's consider these. They can really protect the single-family residence that doesn't have any irrigation, that might be on a fixed income, and we think we've really structured it so that there's some merit to that we hope people tend to latch on to.
One last question.
One last question.
One last question
It was
for-
on the list,
for her?
and we forgot to ask it. But what, just out of curiosity, about what percentage of your revenue comes from London?
I can't tell you what percentage of the revenue. I can tell you that if you're at about 23% of our customers in Pennachuck East Utility, and if you were combined in the combined utility, the merged utility, you'd be about a little less than 6%.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So, I mean, that's kind of relative. So if you think, I can't remember what the revenue requirement is, what we call this, that's how much it costs to run the utility. That's all for the rates. For a standalone Pennachuck East, but your customers would, you know, think about it, it would be kind of
No,
really
that's-
proportional.
Yeah, that's an adequate number, too.
Yeah.
That's a good number, thanks.
So, okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting. I know,
They might have had dinner, but I haven't had dinner.
thank you again.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
so with that, moving on. Good discussion, I think, excellent discussion, actually. Moving on, administrative board work, approval of minutes from June. Any questions on the minutes from June? Have a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve the June minutes by Mike, seconded by Martha. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And minutes are approved. Kirsten, anything from the town staff?
Not unless you need anything from me. Yes, Ann?
Do you have a question? Our next meeting on the 3rd of September, are we gonna have Zoom capability?
Yes,
Oh, good.
we do have
Okay.
Zoom capability back up and
That
running in here.
will work, that will actually work.
We've been using it
Okay.
extensively for planning board meetings recently and master plan study committee meetings, so yes.
Oh, good.
And I thought it worked
That's
out
great.
well, too. And are we gonna have Mindy join us?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the question.
No, our IT team did a wonderful job making
Third.
sure that it was, that
Right.
it was working and functional now. So they stepped up on that for you guys, so.
Kirsten, by way of staff coordination, maybe there's one thing, if you could follow up, I'm not sure with whom and how, but with the comment that we made about distributing, water quality information.
Certainly.
I don't know if you have a contact over there, or what the best way to do it is, but it would be nice if we can implement something. It's something that everybody in the community can benefit from right now from the work of this committee.
I was also thinking, Ron, since you're in Concord, that's the kind of thing that maybe could be discussed as a part of the water contamination committee, or could be at least looked into.
Absolutely.
Maybe somebody that could look into.
We can
and
talk
see
about it
what's
on the,
required.
we have an HB 737 committee that deals with PFAS, but we can bring that up too. Absolutely.
And it's not PFAS is obvious, the tension is focused on
Yeah.
PFAS, but there are obviously uranium, mercury, arsenic, there are lots of things in our water. So it would be nice to know what those levels are on a routine basis. I mean, the idea of a once-a-year report, I kept looking at that baby, thinking, does that baby drink formula?
Right.
Oh, yeah, agree.
That's why early on, I started to realize what you guys were doing. I said to you, well, wait a minute. If it's airborne pollution, it's going into the reservoir. That's a problem.
It's going
The little light bulb went on slow for me, but,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
It's going in Lake Massabesic too,
Right,
but,
right.
but it's so diluted that, it's probably not that big of an issue.
Well,
Plus,
I
they
wouldn't say
do a
that
really good
because-
job
So-
of their treatment plant.
So,
Or parts of
moving on down the agenda, I
sorry
cut
about
it
that.
shut. Master plan update status, Martha, you wanna talk about what's been happening with the master plan?
Well, the master plan is at the very early stages where we've been working with Southern New Hampshire Planning to just formulate how we're going to attack the master plan and how we're going to get information from the general public. So we've been initially working on a questionnaire, and anybody else who's on the committee have other things to add to that?
And there's potential, I think, of maybe distributing a questionnaire or at least an information sheet at Old Home Days. That was discussed at length at the last meeting, so.
Yeah.
To get as much community input as we can into the creation of the master plan. So.
Correct. I don't know if we'll actually have the questionnaire by the Old Home Day, but there will be people in a booth that will have information as much as we have up to that point. But we're meeting weekly at this point to just get this off the ground.
And they're threatening to make it twice a week.
Do you have the old questionnaire that we used the last time around? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel?
I don't know if she has that. I will ask that, though.
Somebody's got it on a hard drive, probably.
Yeah, I think I might, if you can't get anywhere else, in desperation, check with me.
Okay, absolutely, thank you.
If you have it, send it.
Well, I'll have to look for it.
Oh,
but-
okay, then don't worry about it. No, because I know it's pretty much finalized at this point in time.
Oh, okay.
Kristen, you may have that.
The last questionnaire,
Yeah,
not easily accessible, but I can certainly see if I can find it.
Okay.
I'm not sure, you would know better than I about Sylvia and Mike and the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission stance on whether they want to incorporate that or not. But I can certainly see if I can dig that up.
okay. I'll follow up on that.
And right now, the outlook is still probably 12 months, 12 to 18 months before the plan is completed and finalized and approved by the town council, so it's still a ways away. So, but some good initial progress is being made at this point. Okay. I put a bullet on here, just proposed project monitoring and planning spreadsheet. I want to put together a spreadsheet, just keeping track of our projects that we're working on and put that up on our website. So, but project, name, highlights, ownership, who's the lead person from the committee responsible, just so we can kind of keep track of what's happening, so anybody else who's interested can keep track of what's happening. And then we could do a quick summary, every meeting, every other meeting, just to see what's been happening with each of the projects that we're tracking. So, great. Yeah, I think it would help get the word out as to what we're doing, but I think it helps keep us focused on the task as well.
Absolutely.
We're, being held accountable to each other.
You can have anything you want on the website after Old Home Day.
After all. Don't worry, I'm not
for
gonna
it,
get
I
it to you in the next week and a half.
Thank you so much.
Next 2 weeks.
Remember, I did mention I do occasionally like sleeping, so this notebook gets too full.
Moving on to subcommittee discussions. I'll kick off with energy. It's been a while since we have met. It's been 2 months, so there's been a few things that have happened with the Community Choice Power Aggregation Program. So we had our public hearings. We had our 2 public hearings. The first one was with the town council, which had a nice attendance from this committee, so thank you again for that. The second public hearing was on a Saturday morning. We actually had, I think, 12 people attend the meeting, which I thought was really nice, and we had some good questions come in as well. So after that was completed, that second public hearing, we did have our formal PUC submission sent in, and that's in process right now. There's a public comments period of time that's happening. I think it closes today.
It did close today.
And so I would expect some activity coming from the PUC, either approving or commenting on their plan. My guess is at this point in time, they'll approve the plan. Just, a little quick highlight. So Colonial Power Group with Freedom Energy Logistics, they have now 3 other communities. They have 4 communities that they are contracted with. They had Hampton, which was their first community. Now they're contracted with Merrimack, Salem, and Seabrook as well. And so they're expanding their realm. I think as they pick up more towns that they're representing, it'll just benefit everybody. They'll have more buying power and more negotiating power with the power suppliers. So I think that's a pretty good indication of where they're going and the type of service that we can expect from them. They're also going to be putting up a web page in the near future that we'll point to from our web page, but that will give all the details of what the project is. It'll give customer service points of contacts, et cetera, et cetera.
Is that their webpage
Their
or our
webpage, it'll be their
webpage?
webpage.
Oh, but
Well-
you're putting their webpage on the town webpage? I guess I'm just a little
Well,
confused.
so let's-
Whose is what?
Yeah, so
Here.
the committees, when I say the webpage, the committee, we have a webpage, right? So,
Right.
but there is gonna be a dedicated webpage to the power aggregation program.
But is it gonna be clear that, it's not us necessarily that developed or wrote that webpage? I
Right.
mean, you-
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
In a word.
And they will be managing it as well. It will not be Kirsten managing it, so.
Okay.
It will be linked to from your page.
Yep.
And probably from at least one other place on the website, but it will be indicated that it is an external page, managed by an external
good.
company.
Yep.
Okay.
It'll have frequently asked questions, points of contact, directions on how to opt in or opt out, depending on what your status is.
Kirsten's phone number.
Yeah, Kirsten's cell phone number.
Her address, home address.
And then we had
Love
had
working in
some
the town you
discussion
live.
about staffing an old home day booth or co-staffing an old home day booth, and I think at this point in time, we're probably.
I have some bad news for you about availability of Old Home Day booths at this point in time.
So, already sold out, so we can't do
Now,
this?
that
No.
said, if you would like to share in and have some participation at the master plan booth, I can certainly change how I market that booth, but I am full up at this point.
So what I was hoping we could do, and I haven't talked to Colonial Power Group, but is have just a one-page information sheet that we could have made available there as to what it is and what the timing is.
And I can certainly, if you have that, I can certainly make it available there and encourage people you can always encourage people who stop there to take it and learn about it.
Yep. And we're still not at a point where we are going to sign the contract. We're going to wait for the next rate table to be published by Eversource, and then we'll see how they can compete with that rate table for the next 6 months. So
Nice.
it's still down the road before we decide we go with it or not. I just had a just a quick discussion with Jeff. Jeff McGraw is now representing the town on the Manchester Airport Authority Commission. And, we've been talking on and off about potential solar projects and locations for solar projects. So I asked Jeff and I were talking, and it was just like, is there any property up at the airport that they may be willing to dedicate to it? I mean, they have solar panels on top of the parking garage, so, is it gonna blind pilots? I think that's probably a moot question at this point in time, right?
Yeah, it's actually, it's a thing to be concerned about, but it's a solved problem. They know how to put solar panels near airports to not blind pilots. And the response when I spoke to the director, the CEO of the airport, he was enthusiastic.
Yep.
So we've been trading emails, but we haven't had a sit-down meeting yet. He said there's a piece of land that's a hilly piece of land that you can't build on, and I'm assuming building, that would be perfect for solar, so.
And
How that
where would the energy go, to the airport or to nearby businesses?
I
or-
mean,
It would get
go
sold
into the
back into
grid.
the grid.
To the grid.
yeah,
Okay.
Get sold into the grid.
yeah. I'm sure the airport would buy some of it.
Well,
It
I'm
would
just
probably, some
wondering
of
if
it would be.
residents are gonna get the power, or who's.
Yeah, it goes into the grid. It's just like the grid.
Who would,
Well,
okay, I won't.
You could consider a behind-the-meter approach, too.
Sure. I mean, if we,
It's still up in the air, I think. How it-
yeah, we are at the phase of, hey, this is kind of a neat idea. Do you want to talk about it? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's talk about it.
Businesses
That's as far
over
as we,
there,
yeah.
some of the businesses will want it. You got a lot of big, flat top.
Well, some
roof
of the businesses already have them.
Yeah.
Just be one more source, but I just thought it was a great topic to have under discussion, and if the airport's interested in doing it, I think that just solves a lot of the infrastructure problems we've been talking about with like three-phase power and EPA approval of, Auburn Road and things like that. So,
They've already installed quite a few panels on there
At the airport.
at
you're
the top of
talking
the garage, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the air traffic controllers were complaining about how the sun was reflecting back to the air traffic controllers.
about. Really?
They could not land the plane certain times of the day.
Yeah, it was a
God.
problem for the air traffic
That's
controllers
bad.
and not for the
A
pilots.
little bit of a problem, right?
Yeah, they actually, Manchester Airport, the fact that they built the solar panels so close to the operating part of the airport, they
Yeah.
set a standard on solar panels for the entire country, and the algorithm on where and how to put them is because of the panels on Manchester Airport, which is pretty cool.
They said, don't do that anymore.
Well, they've got a way to do it. I mean, there's, the runways are going over here, so they point the sun over there, and it's, you do the math to figure out where the sun's gonna be in the sky, and, the engineers just do the math,
Yeah,
and they can
we're-
figure out where to put it.
Yep, we're a long way from making it happen. I
Yeah,
just think it's an
yeah, there's
interesting
50
proposal.
different ways this could turn into a no.
Probably three-phase up there, too.
Yep, absolutely. So that was some interesting news that I think we're gonna keep pursuing.
Yep.
Anything else on energy?
Update on the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant is that there is no update. Last we heard was, our application is accepted and the DOE will be, working to create a contractor that will work with the towns that are gonna do energy strategies. And that will be announced this summer. And it's early August, so I think maybe I'll see if I can get Justin to, go back and tweak them and say, how's summer going? And then I emailed Lynn a bunch of things to pursue in connection with energy efficiency audits, and just of the buildings, that MISPA buildings. And since we haven't had a meeting, we haven't really had a chance to delve into that, but just for the rest of the committee to know that we haven't forgotten about that.
Is that for town buildings?
Yeah, that'd be town. Town and school are, if at all possible, if they want to cooperate.
Mr. Chair, I do.
Big if.
I do actually have one thing to report. You had forwarded the information about the Thriving Communities Grant federal workshop seminar, and I did actually go and attend that
Oh, great.
at St. Anselm's about a week ago,
Yeah, okay.
and got quite some interesting information about different potential projects and different sources of funding linked to those Thriving Communities grants. So thank you for that information, and you'll be hearing from me on some of that soon.
Oh,
Good,
excellent.
good, thanks.
Excellent.
Thanks for doing that. Sorry, I couldn't.
It was at both of Lynn and Mike's suggestion, so thank you.
Good, good. So I don't know if everybody knows, but Kirsten is our administrative support person, designated liaison to the town. So if we have any town issues, she is our conduit to get those.
Says everything.
I'm pretty easy to find.
And here you thought you were here out of idle curiosity.
It's in the monthly report.
You love being here all
Jeff, Water Subcommittee?
Water Subcommittee, next meeting, Saturday 24th, 10 a.m. It's the second Saturday after the Utility Committee meeting. I'll be getting the announcements out for that a full week early instead of 3.5 days early. Still pulling together data. We have some difficulty, and Kirsten/Lynn, maybe you can help us with this. We're having some difficulty getting meetings with town leadership to discuss their thoughts on water, and maybe finding a way to unstick that might be helpful. So you may be getting a call from some people on the water committee. We obviously have a great, the opportunity to follow up on what's the start of, I hope, a great relationship with Penachuk.
Yep.
And if we're lucky, they'll have a lot of the thinking about how to expand. And if we can be the town liaison to help raise money to get the build out, it's not gonna come from them. And we're not gonna write I'm not gonna write a $30 million check.
How come?
Well, my wife.
Lot more than that.
What's the problem?
I gotta buy a boat this summer. But we have a pursuit vector to find funds. If that's something that we can do, don't know if we can, but it's something that we can do if we have a plan or a thought to get town water for everybody in Londonderry. Not saying that that's a must-have, but it's been discussed. Then we know what we can do to help make that move forward, which is find money from state or federal or whoever. And if we could get access to those funds, then they could likely make it happen. They can get the engineering and that's available. And, we can run down funds.
Is this water, you mentioned the water committee meeting on the 24th. Is that at 10 o'clock?
That's gonna be 10 o'clock in the Sunnycrest room, yes.
Okay. All right.
Not the library, the Sunnycrest room, because Kirsten's gonna make sure the door's open for us.
Okay.
I got some connections.
Great.
And since Lynn brought it up, I am on the airport committee meeting, and the runway 35, which is the runway, if you know the airport, it's the one that's going north, that if you're landing on runway 35, it's just a little bit to the left of due north, and it lands coming right over Londonderry. They were doing work on that, the last year or so on one of the ends of the runway. That's finished. They're gonna be there may be some more traffic, but it's been going on full run rate for about 6 months. And if you haven't noticed more airplanes, there's no problem. And JetBlue is coming to the airport, so. The airport is doing very, very well. The team is doing good things, and there's, I think, 7 airports there now, or I'm sorry, 7 airlines there now. And it's growing, and they're doing really well. And I received a hint, it's usually cheaper to fly out of Manchester instead of out of Logan if you book at least 6 weeks ahead. So if you're booking the month, like a week ahead, you're gonna get tanked. But if you book 6 weeks out, it's almost always cheaper to come out of Manchester.
Good to know.
So, and I checked it on the last 3 business trips I've had, and it's worked every time. So,
And I wanted to have just a brief chat on Ross Drive and Token Hill Drive. You know, there's been a lot of discussion down there with that particular neighborhood. There's a couple, so they're off Gilcrest, south of Home Depot. And there's 2 townhouse developments going in down there, and there was a lot of concern in there. One of the townhouse developments is going on an old brownfield site.
oh geez, okay.
Oh, it's
And-
a
and, there's a lot
brownfield
of
site.
this-
It's
pardon?
not a Superfund site, it's a brownfield site?
The Superfund site, I believe, is next to it.
Oh geez.
That makes a difference.
Well, no,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand, but the question is, the citizens down there have contaminated wells, and they're wondering what they can do. or
Oh,
what-
totally, I'm sure.
Well, we're
What do
wondering-
they, I did talk to Martha about this, and I didn't find out, I didn't hear as to what the contaminants are, whether or not, we just need some more specific information before we're gonna call EPA and talk to them about it. We need to know, you know, how many, what are the contaminants, when was the last time it was tested, that the people, the residents tested their house? You know, what the levels were, it was just useful to have that information.
But
Do we have that information?
it's available, I don't have it personally, but it is available.
Ray knows
Can
it.
I say something in that regard?
Yep.
The US EPA has Hadley Aldrich do a 5-year study of both Auburn Road and the Tinkham Superfund site. The last one is done in 2019, okay?
Yeah.
So it basically is due for another one. The EPA did send a notification to some of these people on Ross Drive, okay? They also, I believe, identified some of the contaminants, okay?
Okay.
In the 2019 Superfund site report done by Hadley Aldrich, there is dioxin there is PFOAs, leaching off-site, okay? Now, Ross Drive and so forth technically was not actually in the Superfund, Tinkham Superfund, but it's leaching into them, okay? There is municipal water on Gilcrest, and there's no reason why those folks shouldn't be connected in and have municipal water. That hasn't happened yet, but it should be something that we discuss and maybe bring forward, you know, even with Penachuk later on, okay? You know, our focus is pretty much High Range Road. You know, that's kind of our focus. But, you know, these other things we have to be concerned with. So this information is available, okay?
So,
Okay,
do you have a copy of it, or
yes,
the Haley and
yeah,
Aldrich?
but, yes, and if you want to contact Hadley and Aldrich, they have an office in Manchester.
No, I just get it from you.
Okay, so,
Why would I contact them?
no, I don't have all the answers, no, but the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services has that information. And
EPA does have as well.
Andrew Fuller from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services is the intermediary between them and the town of Londonderry. So basically, the town of Londonderry has that information also, okay?
good.
And
Well, we've got a lot of
and
sources.
we, on this committee, water subcommittee, also should be aware of that and know what it is,
Yeah,
okay? So, look, I don't have all the answers here, but this information is public, available to the public and to us.
Yeah, it sounds like we became, or Martha became aware of it, right?
Well-
Because some of your neighbors talked to you about
Yeah.
it?
But the US EPA sent that letter to them.
Right.
Okay, well, I don't receive every single letter from
No, no,
the
no, no.
EPA,
That's why
So
we-
I
No,
don't
but
know
I
what you're
sent you a
talking
copy
about.
of that letter. I sent you a
Okay.
copy of the letter that
Did you
went to the
email it
folks.
to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I will check it out. I haven't seen it.
Quick
And-
question, Phil. So brownfield is like one level below a Superfund, right? Or something like that? Or less
It's
restrictions?
usually a site which has had contamination on it, and it's been cleaned up, and they're planning on using it for another industrial use.
Oh, like the place over in Hudson on 100, okay.
Right.
But it's restricted, isn't it usually restricted? You can't use it for residential. Is that correct?
Well, each site is gonna be different. It depends what was there. And each site has its own, restrictions on it.
Thank you. I just know the difference.
Yeah.
Ray,
and
can
the-
I ask
But
you
a
about the?
report, oh, sorry.
I'm just curious that the numbers that you're talking about that are available, they are the contamination from the testing of the water at the site, but they don't include testing at people's individual homes,
Well,
correct?
that's different, but that, at least some of that is available with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Those homeowners that chose to share that information with them,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, but-
some of that information is available.
Have the
Like-
homeowners,
like-
are they compensated for any of the tests? Or, I mean, given that it was a Superfund site, I know they're not on the Superfund site, but if the site is leaking, if that contamination is leaching and directed, flowing into their groundwater and their wells.
Some
is
of
there
them are
any
getting
way-
bottled water right now. Some of the homes there
Okay.
on those roads are getting bottled water right
How many
now.
homes are we talking about?
Well, so I'll drive you through there. There's
Well,
quite a
it's-
few,
Maybe
there's
40.
quite a few, yeah,
40?
yeah, at
I
least,
don't know,
That's a
30
lot
to
of
40.
homes.
yeah.
Okay, so 40 homes.
But I think it's
close by.
something that we as a committee should start advocating for, is to
Yeah,
come up with a
because,
solution.
you know, some people think that it's, the Superfund site, both Tinkham and Auburn Road, is a mute point. No, it isn't.
Right.
No, it isn't.
Well, Auburn is quite a ways from Home Depot in
What?
that area. Auburn Road site,
Auburn Road is, yeah,
quite
it's
a distance.
from Home
We're
Depot.
not talking Auburn Road.
No,
Tinkham.
we're
He's
not-
talking about Tinkham.
No, we're talking about Tinkham.
Okay.
Slip of the tongue.
Tinkham.
Oh, okay.
Is leaching offsite into these other wells of residents that do not have municipal water, and there is municipal water on Gilchrist.
Right on
And
the
so
end of the
it
street.
would be
Yeah.
a pretty simple thing to do, and so, I mean, I don't know if that's our job, but,
Well, supposedly the EPA,
Advocate for it, so.
yeah, yeah.
EPA said that they're talking to the responsible parties and they're coming up with some kind of a report.
Well,
But it's moving so slowly that I cannot.
It always moves
Yeah,
slow.
but
Well,
This is
when we're talking about the
I can tell you.
responsible
Slowly.
parties, we're talking about DuPont and 3M, and they've been talking about them for years, okay?
Well, I think Tinkham, you're talking about Tinkham. You're
Yeah.
talking about the real estate company. We're not talking necessarily about DuPont.
No.
If responsible parties are people who are responsible for disposing the waste at that particular location. So if it's a Tinkham Superfund site, it has to be all, but that potential responsible parties are all of those different
Right.
parties
Correct.
that are liable for disposing of waste in that particular area. That's what it means. So DuPont, and is not going to necessarily be
But I
part of
think
it.
that EPA has identified who they are.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
And so
Tinkham's been around for a while.
hopefully they're.
But
working
Ray, what I
on
think you're
something about
suggesting,
it.
though, based on what Penachuk, what they were saying to us tonight, is they're willing to, help us if
Yes.
we, as a committee, help the town identify that this might be a potential really important place.
You know,
for
so,
us to start.
basically, it's us to go and talk to the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Service ARCA money, whatever is available, to see if that could be used to extend the water line to Ross Drive, Tinkham, what's the other one? Tocono.
Yeah.
You know, the burden shouldn't be put on those folks, but if there's federal money that reasonably could be used for that,
It's a
and
Superfund
we
site,
can
it's federal
steer
money.
that in that direction,
Yeah.
maybe we should do that.
What
I
did
guess I'm a
Penachuk-
little confused because it sounds like this area just kind of popped up, whereas there are maybe other areas that we will hear about in.
No, this area didn't
This-
just pop up.
this-
No.
This has been
This-
going on for
this
years.
has been
I mean,
going
there's
on for
nothing new
years.
about
I'm
this.
talking about, what I mean by area popped up, I'm talking about the drinking water from those 40 homes. that
No,
people
they've had
didn't-
problems.
This-
They've had
they've had
problems. They've been
But if
complaining
they
about
are
it
not-
since Home Depot was built. Since that area was built, that whole area down there, that's when this problem started. And the people that live in that neighborhood have been complaining about these issues since that.
So they're blaming Home Depot.
No,
not
they're,
Tinkham.
no,
No.
Home Depot was built on the Tinkham site.
I know, but it's a little unclear as to what the cause is, and the Tinkham, it'll be interesting to see where they are in the process. I thought Tinkham was closed, but
no,
maybe
yeah,
it's
okay,
not.
wait,
No.
But, so I heard Penachuk say that it's what, $300 to $400 a foot to put in water line? So, you got probably 2,000 feet of road down there, so, you do the math, and the people aren't gonna be able to afford to do that. There's gotta be another solution that we can hopefully find.
yes, yeah. They didn't cause the
Get
problem.
some, get some money
No,
for
they
it, yeah.
certainly didn't cause a problem.
Exactly.
Get some money.
So I just wanted to bring that up to for everybody's information at this point in time, but I think it's something that we can start advocating for going forward. I think
Well, I think you need
and-
to,
Deserve
I
something.
think we, maybe I'm late to the game here, but I just think we need to find out where the sources of contamination are for those people, for those 40 people. Whether it is, could be Home Depot.
No.
We don't know
It's
what,
not Home Depot.
wait a minute, wait, you don't know.
I know, well,
It's
I've
from
read the
Tinkham.
letter that came from the EPA.
I'm just saying that sometimes Home Depot has come under EPA's enforcement realm a few times. But they may have their own waste that they're putting out there in the back 30. You never know, in addition to being on a Tinkham site.
So anyway, I think it's something that
That we should look
well
into.
within our purview to look at and advocate for those residents down in that neighborhood. Moving on to or anything else in water?
Yes,
Yes.
you will get a rewrite of PFAS, updated PFAS, as stuff you will get a rewrite of the PFAS discussion. And I was debating whether it was useful to do it after Mindy speaks or before Mindy speaks in terms of video. I think it's smart to have her there as part of any video that we do.
For your PFAS video?
Right.
That's your video. You can, however you want to set it up, it's your,
If she's willing to come, that would be very good.
you're in charge of how that is structured.
Okay.
If you want her, we'll get her.
She
We'll ask
wrote
for
a book, just for you guys' information. She wrote a book called Female Disruptors, which just recently came out. And it's actually a good book. I'm halfway through it.
And we'll see her next month, so I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be great too. Moving on, sewer solid waste, we have a new subcommittee stood up, or not new stood up, but
We sat down.
we sat down, we have a.
Oh, wow, the dad
we have
jokes
a-
come out.
We have a chairman and we have a secretary. John Mann is, now in charge of the committee. Thank you, John, for taking on that role. One more thing for you to do. And Joy is the secretary. Thank you, Joy, for standing up and taking on that responsibility as well.
And I can't tell you how much I enjoy having Joy as my secretary, because I do it for Beautify Londonderry. And she can have that pain. We met Saturday and basically covered 3 areas. Bob Kerry, who is the town's environmental engineer, gave a draft PowerPoint presentation to us that covered his proposed wastewater master plan going forward, something looking out about 10 years with the sewerage. And a number of interesting factoids in that, but I think, you know, the bottom line is, well, good news, bad news. The good news is that most of the costs, matter of fact, almost all of the costs associated with the build-outs that would be required over the next 8 to 10 years will be paid not from property taxes that hit all of our citizens, but from new user fees, the one-time fees when new users are signed up, and also from quarterly fees for those people that are already hooked in. So the bad news is the bottom line on that was about $19 million over the next few years. A big chunk of that being upgrades to some of the treatment plant up in Manchester, where we contribute about 10% of the solid waste that goes into that plant. So it's part of our contract that we're responsible for that. So I thanked Bob for boiling that down. The actual report itself was about 150 pages, and to get through it in 8 to 10 PowerPoint slides was a blessing that we thanked him for.
And would you be willing to share those slides with the committee here?
It was still in draft form.
Oh, fair enough.
Okay, once he's got that in final form, absolutely. I think he did agree to send it to the members of the subcommittee, but he wanted to finalize first.
So he did send it to me this past, yesterday, I do believe, and so I'll be sending it out to the members of the subcommittee. But yes, it is currently in draft status, and when it is finalized, it will become ready for public consumption, but draft documents are protected under 91A until they come into their final form.
And could they be distributed to other members of our committee, or just within our?
Check on Bob about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was discussed publicly, but the actual slide documents are
Yep.
not necessarily public yet, but I'll
I
double
wouldn't
check.
want them to be public, but I would, you know.
And once it
where
is done, I want to
Paul
be
asked if he
clear,
could
like,
see
once it is finalized, it will be, but let me just
Let's
double
wait
check
till-
with,
Let's just wait till it's ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, fine.
Lynn brought up a topic at the meeting regarding final disposal of some of these PFAS-contaminated filters that we have in our houses now. They have 2 to 3 year lives, more or less, depending on usage and what your numbers were. So the discussion centered on what do we do with these things when they come to end of life. And right now, unfortunately, I think the feedback is, again, Bob helped us with this, Bob Kerry, is bag them and take them to your local dump. That's the
Great
current-
idea.
So,
So we're back to burn it, bag it, or put it in
Yeah,
the
it
river.
goes into the landfill.
Okay.
Right, and then it seeps out. and
Kick the
goes
can.
into the river.
whereas these are fairly new, we'll look for further information on that as we go down the pike. But it might be a good question for a member of this committee who's representative up at the State House to explore some possibilities with his ongoing interest in
Yes.
PFAS, things of that sort, and you could report back to the
Absolutely.
chairman of the sewer and solid waste.
I'd be very happy, John, to report back to you.
Thank you, sir.
Get on.
I will.
Yeah.
And the third discussion point was one that I brought up, had to do with some new developments in composting that we talked about. I showed a couple of new devices. And basically, the gist of that presentation was that food waste makes up 20 to 25% of what we send to the landfill every week.
That's interesting.
Or every other week.
In Londonderry,
Yeah.
it's 20 to 25%.
Yeah, pretty much everybody. They have some pretty good numbers, Ann, on what each house generates. For example, my wife and I, in our two-family house, generate a couple of pounds of food waste every week. And it's interesting because our payments to waste management now are based on tonnage, and food waste is a large contributor to that tonnage. So brought up this topic to see if there was an interest in the group in maybe doing more work on perhaps looking at composting options for the town of Londonderry. under the theme of Londonderry leads the way. God forgive me for that one. Even my friendly engineer, Bob
about 20
Carey,
years old.
who hasn't said no to any of my crackpot proposals in 3 or 4 years, shook his head in a positive fashion for that. So I have the task, I think, and anybody in the subcommittee that's interested, of digging up some more information and see what we could bring a little further down the road. So exploratory at this point. And for our first meeting, those were 3 pretty good-sized topics.
Cable and internet, nothing happening there. Nothing expected to happen there for a while, so we'll keep it on the agenda though, just to have it there.
I'm smiling. Yes, there is a little bit happening there.
What?
Doing some research on why people are getting these 5 to 6 second pauses in certain parts of the town on the cable.
Oh, yeah.
It's getting pretty severe. You'll be trying to change channels and nothing happens.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
So I'm doing a little research. I know partly what's going on. But I got to research more. It's partly a combination of incompatibility of the server network that feeds your cable optics, fiber optics, versus the boxes they have, which cannot take that kind of bandwidth of records, and they all of a sudden skip out. Then you gotta get a new IP address, and it reserts, and it happens both for your TV and your computer. So I got we call it a blow box, but it's a box that sits there, and it goes, boop, no signal. So, and a lot of people have been complaining. I haven't advertised to the town that just call me and let me know so I can get more data. I'm trying to just find out which boxes which. There's the same problem in California, and it could be just the thing of replacing a lot of people's boxes and stuff.
Interesting.
So,
Good.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Looking forward to hearing more about that.
it's gonna be
just
very,
to,
very upset. Oh,
to-
and I did have a meeting with a FiOS. We do not have an exclusive in the town, but they're not gonna do what they call an overbuild. They might just run their own, so it won't be cable, it'll be FiOS, and they haven't called me back. We were supposed to have a meeting Monday, but then they canceled out, so I'm gonna try to reschedule that.
So I got an ad from Fidium,
Fidium is the other one.
and, you know, put your your address in, and the answer was, we can do you.
Yes,
Is that true?
yes. Not every place yet. The closer you are to the Boston North development, you're gonna be better off, because they're gonna wire that whole thing. That's my understanding, so. That and DirecTV is starting to offer, where Xfinity can no longer refuse not to carry DirecTV. So you can get DirecTV through your cable provider. And it's a service you can get, and I'm getting more information. I'm not to advocate one over the other, but I wanna make it public so people understand there are options. Because Xfinity, unfortunately, I feel is one of the more expensive in the country. For example, Boston has 5 different cable companies you can buy from. So there's competition. There's not really competition. So, not
what-
really.
When is our contract, the town's municipal contract with Xfinity, when does it expire?
So the town planners did not know that I was the original cable chairman, and I missed reviewing it. So I do have it on reading. I think it's good for another 3 years, I think.
I'm not sure, but I can check on that for you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's 3 years. I got
Because
it.
that would help the subcommittee plan its work.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, well, I've been in Londonderry now for 2 renewals of that contract, and have regretted not taking a more active role in either one, because I found out too late. So that's why I'm determined this time that we get ahead of it.
I found out after the fact. When I went to read it, I was a little upset. 'Cause I was pretty adamant when I was cable chairman that 3% of the monies get set aside for the cable studio. Unfortunately, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, our town fathers voted to put that into general fund. That studio was there for a couple reasons. One of the design considerations I had was, I don't know if you know it or not, but we have separate systems for fire education in town. So the fire and police had their own dedicated lines, in case of emergency and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because of education and communication back 25, 30 years ago, maybe it was more than that, I was concerned about the high school students being able to get access and get trained on it.
Right.
So, at that point in time, the board did agree to hire a full-time person, that was Dottie. And that's what started the whole thing, and that's what we have now. So it's near and dear to my heart, but, so, sorry about that. We do have cable going on.
No, good, good.
Thanks for the update.
Still a little aggravated, but, yeah. Okay.
Good. So, moving on next to go to roundtable. So, Joy?
Yeah, I'm just gonna add a tiny bit to the discussion about what we talked about, or what the information Bob gave us at the Sewer Solid Waste Committee meeting. Good news for people who are using those services is that they are going to, based on their projected plan, they are gonna actually reduce the fee. So that's some good news.
That was good news.
Good. Bob?
I may make some calls to the Public Utilities Commission, find out where our aggregation filing.
Perfect. That'd be great.
See if we can find, at least get a rough estimate as to what we might expect it.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. Ann?
I'll review your email and try to, email is not my favorite place that I go to get information, as you all have picked up pretty easily. But anyway, I'll go to that and then I'll make some telephone calls to folks at EPA.
Great.
One quick question. When's the next oil waste drop-off?
The next oil waste would be the first Saturday in September, which should be, like the 7th or 8th of September, whatever that Saturday
Thank you.
is.
So I wanna know.
September 7th.
7th. Yep.
I may put it in the minutes, but I need to know. Thank you. That's it.
I always put it in my calendar if I.
I got
It
it.
is September the 7th, and I'll be there.
I will bring 30.
I got the shift.
I will bring over 30 gallons, so.
Ooh.
Don't get behind him.
Martha?
I'm all set.
Mike, all set? Jeff?
All set. Still, if people want to put stuff on the Facebook page, send email to Lynn or I, and/or I. Ray had a great suggestion earlier today to post the meeting announcements on the Facebook page and who our guests are going to be. That's easy enough to do, but please send me a reminder. You know, I'm still working and I forget. But it's easy enough to post stuff, and if you send it to Lynn and/or I, or both of us, then one of us will remember.
Yep.
So.
Good. Ray?
I think, first off, this is very good with Penachuk, you know, the discussion and everything, and their willingness to work with us, that's great. The other thing is communication to the general public. We do have Old Home Day coming up. When is that?
Week from
17th.
Saturday.
Yeah. So I guess the town is going to have a booth?
The town master plan, I mean, how do I put this? All the booths are the towns, but none of them are. There's people rent booths. There is the town master plan committee reserved a booth. So they are the organization that has reserved a booth. We have a general information booth, but that's not staffed to handle town-related questions. That's strictly for Old Home Day-related questions.
Yeah.
So on Saturday, there will be the only town committee or organization that requested a booth this year, besides the Senior Resource Committee, was the Master Plan Committee.
Yeah, okay, so.
And the
that's
Arts
good,
Council.
That's good. The Master Plan Committee, I think there's a lot of things that the Master Plan Committee is gonna be working on, what the priorities are. And if the general public at Old Home Day has some questions or wants to have a discussion, I think that's all good. You know, the discussion and the education of the general public, getting the word out to the general public and getting their response back, I think is vital and important. And so,
You're talking about the degrees of contamination in the water. Is that what you're talking in terms of sort of a process?
that may be a part of it, yes. But there's so much looking forward, you know, in the master
General.
plan,
Oh,
okay? You know, that entails a lot. Traffic, water, sewerage, so many things. But, so, other than that,
Ron?
All right. I have some good news to share. On Friday, the governor signed HB 1649, which allows the PFAS removal rebate program to be continued. So that's a very positive thing. It's not going to start up again until September 9th, but that's because they're working on some rules. But the rebate program was extended at the state level. There is $12 million in this fund now. Basically, what happened to the fund was when the contaminant level was lowered to 4 parts per trillion, the system was inundated with applications and the money ran out fast. So at the state, we appropriated $12 million, and the governor signed that into law on Friday. So as of September 9th, people will be able to apply into that program, and it will continue as it did before. So that's the good news.
can people still, in the meantime, contact DES to get their water tested?
Yes.
Okay, so they can still do
Yep.
that?
Right now, the rebate program is stopped.
Right.
Right now, but yes, they can still
But
get
they
their
can
water
still get the
tested.
water
Yes.
tested, okay.
Yep.
Ryan, quick question
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
If you submitted in the previous round and were denied because they ran out of money, do you now have to reapply?
So
Do you know that?
I'm not aware of anyone that got denied.
We
If
were.
you are, have them contact me, because I'm not aware of anybody that did. If they did, yes, you can
Yeah,
resubmit.
we were.
Okay, so yeah, please, yeah. Then yes,
We'll
please.
get an answer to that question.
You're the first person actually that I know. So yes, please contact myself or contact DES. They as of September 9th, that program will be back open again. So if you were denied because of lack of funds, that would be the reason.
Okay.
So, but yes.
So with those
Was it lack
funds,
of funds or change in the
No,
standard?
it was lack of funds. Yeah,
Yeah.
they ran out of money.
so with those funds, she can get a purification system put in her house?
Up to $5,000 rebated to you.
We've already put it. We've already
Wait.
put it in.
Okay.
Put it in.
Rebated,
within
okay.
500 feet of
Yeah,
a
you-
contaminated well, right?
It has to be certain restrictions.
If
Yeah.
you
but
have
I'm not.
PFAS or PFOA above 4 parts per trillion now, if you have that in your water, and if you have private water, right, private well, and if it's higher than that, you can then, after September 9th, I guess.
Correct.
Get us a reimbursement to have the system put
I
in the
thought it
kitchen of
was-
the whole house.
I thought the state hadn't lowered their standard yet.
The state hasn't officially lowered their standard yet, but for this program, they did.
Program,
That's what happened. So with this program, this rebate program, they lowered it in April. And then they got inundated with applications. So the program got stopped because it ran out of money. So this particular program right here, as of September 9th, you'll be able to, I get reapply. I wasn't aware that you got denied, so
Yep.
that's good
The
information to
federal
know.
level
But
lowers
the
it.
money is
It
back in
has
there. There's $12 million back in this
automatic.
program.
Has to go.
4 parts per trillion?
It's
This
required.
program right now, the
Legally.
director loaded to 4 parts per trillion, just for this program.
Well, that's gonna be used up in a second.
Yeah.
That's what happened to the program, right? That's why they had to
Right.
put $12 million into it.
$12 more
Yeah,
million
well,
dollars.
12
though.
million,
Yeah.
ain't gonna last very
Better
long.
go
We
quick.
gotta- we
Gotta
gotta
get
get
there
on it.
quick. Right away, September.
Okay. Ray, I just want to say, I'm happy there's $12 million in there. Ray, please apply. Just-
Is that at 4 or
They're
above?
contaminated.
So Ron,
Everybody?
I do have another question for Ron.
So if you are applying at 4 parts per trillion, your water comes
that
in at
right?
4 parts per trillion, then I believe you would qualify. If it was 3.9, then you wouldn't qualify. I
Right.
believe 4 is the amount.
4
Yeah.
is it.
So for
4
the-
parts per
Ron?
trillion.
Yeah.
For your example,
Oh,
ours
no.
was 6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When,
there you go.
and we decided that when the
Yeah.
state was 12, when
Yep.
when it was EPA was higher, we decided that 6 was still too. We didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
We put in a system, and then EPA lowered it. The state said we're gonna for this program we're
Yep.
gonna lower it.
Right.
And so that
They legally have to lower
Yeah.
it. Every state in the country
Yes, the
has to
program is
lower
now at 4 parts per
parts per
trillion.
trillion.
Whatever
Every
she spent, she
state
can
in the
get
country.
reimbursed.
What's that? Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, so Ron Records, I gotta be very careful. I say
No,
this.
no.
So Ann knows, because I showed her.
Yep.
I try to do a lot of research, and I'm gonna do more.
Yep.
But the 23 Manchester Water Works record shows a PFOS rate of
What's higher than 4?
4.58. So that means if I
Interesting.
run the test at my house,
Yep.
even though I have Pennachuck water, I qualify for the re-rate program.
Yeah, yep.
But
So-
it's a bigger question. If they're at 4.58, we've got one heck of a
So,
bigger
so that's a
problem.
different question because
Exactly.
the state is in the process of transferring over to the 4 parts per trillion. They have 3 years to do it. So that would be a question I would want to ask Amy Russo
Okay.
because she would know the definite details on that. But I don't believe you would qualify
Why is that?
because you're on a public water system.
That is so.
Because right now, the
I
public,
know.
but right now, the public water system, the standard is 12 right now in the state.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It's the other way
It's
around.
4. That's a that's a
And that-
federal mandate.
when you said the
But they have
regs,
3 years to implement it, sir. That's what I'm saying is, so ask, I can contact Amy and get the exact details for you guys, but I know the state has 3 years to implement it.
the state has 3 years to write their own regs. but
Correct.
They have to implement the 4 now.
Wow.
Okay? I'll defer to you.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll do more research to see
They
the
have,
latest
they always
test
have time to rewrite their
I-
own regs.
Can you get back to us on that?
I will get back to you on that. I will ask Amy tomorrow morning. How's that? I'll get back to you, because,
And by the way, I was very careful not to bring that up to John during this meeting.
Yeah.
Because I want to do more research, but
But it could be, there could be something in the reg which applies to the municipals and saying you guys have the effective date for the municipals is farther down the road.
because
That could be,
there is a lot of federal money coming to the state for the municipal programs to get the water up to date, because it's gonna cost a lot of money to do
you
that,
see,
so.
yeah,
But I'll get you an
they
answer from Amy.
lobbied.
well, good.
I'm
And as a
just not
committee-
aware of that, so.
As a committee, I think it'd be good to know what the current rate
Mm-hmm.
is, so we can keep you and everybody informed, because it's gonna be a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
John?
I'm all set.
That was the right answer.
All good.
Kirsten, all good? Okay, our next meeting, public comment?
Yep, tons of comments.
I
That chair
expected-
looks
I actually
chatty.
expected some public comment tonight. I'm disappointed we didn't get any.
Hey, I was surprised.
Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 3rd. Mindy Messner, do you want to, or has she confirmed, or do you want to confirm with her end?
Oh, I'll keep confirming with it, don't worry.
She's
I'll
on
keep-
it.
And
Anybody have
please, make sure you get me her contact information so I can get her the appropriate Zoom link for the meeting.
Oh, I can give that to you.
Oh, well, just when you confirm, just,
Okay.
Good, so seeing no other business, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Martha, second by Jeff, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we're adjourned.